Hi, this is Eric from longboxreview.com, and this is Center Seat, my Star Trek podcast. Hello and welcome to this episode of Center Seat, where we are covering Star Trek Picard Season 3. This episode will be covering episodes 6, 7, and 8, The Bounty, Dominion, and Surrender. And of course, joining me to do that has been my number one, Darrell Taylor of the Taylor Network of Podcast. Welcome back, Darrell. Thank you for joining me once again to talk about Star Trek Picard Season 3.
Oh, yeah, I've been suffering through not having any Star Trek discussions with anyone who cares. I can't talk about it with, I can try at work and they'd look at me like, why are you talking to us about this? I don't care about this.
That's funny you say that about work because I have some people at work who are big Star Wars fans and they're big fantasy fans. And so, they talk about D&D and stuff like that. But then every time I bring up Star Trek, they recognize they know what Star Trek is.
Yeah.
They may even like Star Trek to a certain degree, but it's not the same level as I feel about it. So
I know. I'm like, when I was your age, I was watching a whole bunch of Star Trek, and it was great, and we loved it.
Well, speaking of that, it's just real quick, the level of love, because obviously we are recording this after the finale of Star Trek Picard Season 3. The level of love that I have been hearing on other podcasts that I listen to that are about Star Trek, and just kind of generally online on social media about the Next Generation cast and that era of Trek, in the 90s, the 80s, late 80s and into the 90s, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, that grouping has just been it's been interesting and incredible to experience because, you and we watched all that stuff in real time.
Yeah.
And we loved it. But we did. I don't know about your experience, but my experience was I didn't really know anybody who was into it as much as I was. But it's really cool to see now, almost 30 years later. It's been the 29th anniversary of all the last episode of the Next Generation run, All Good Things. That just happened. So lots of people talking about that.
I have. Like, it's weird. It's weird. I have a few friends, and I used to have a Star Trek podcast, but we just were so sporadic in recording with his schedule that we just had to kind of just stop doing it. But we used to, me and him would talk Star Trek all the time. Like, that was, you'd have one or two that were just as crazy about Star Trek as you were, and then you can be like, remember that time on planet so-and-so, and they got possessed by those parasites, and it was, there's not but so many that you could talk to about that. Like I would talk to my friend JK and my friend Tom, Tom King, who does comics. He loves Star Trek.
Oh.
Like, he is an adamant Star Trek fan. So every now and again we will talk on the phone and talk about, Star Trek or whatever. But like I said, far and few between. And then when I knew you were a Star Trek fan like that, I was like, and then I was like, I slipped into your DMs. I was like, hey, you like Star Trek like that? I would love to talk Star Trek with you.
True story.
But most people don't. Like, it's because now Star Trek is available on so many free streaming apps that now you have people that are watching watching the Next Generation first. Like, they didn't come into it in the original series. It's hard to get into it back, to get into that series. It's like Doctor Who for me, I'm a Doctor Who fan, but it's like Doctor Who. It's like, it's hard to get into the original stuff until, but Tenet on you can do.
Oh yeah.
It's more modern, but it's hard to get into the really old stuff. And it's the same way now that it's available on like Tubi and the Hero channel and all these, different streaming, free streaming channels now and it runs all day. So now you have people like just sitting down together and just watching Trek or parents watching it with their kids, like when they eat dinner.
That's funny.
Amazing.
You mentioned this because last week I was at my daughter's house babysitting her kids while she and her husband went and did something. And at one point, one of those days, we were all the three of us, the two kids and I, we were just hanging out at the house, and I put on, this is on Pluto TV. They have a couple Star Trek channels like you're describing.
Oh yeah.
And I put that on, and it happened to be during that point in the day, it was just all the original series episodes that were playing. And I watched. It was playing in the background, and the kids were just doing stuff. But I watched like 6 hours of Star Trek.
Yeah, it's just that easy.
It was so glorious, and also I realized this is probably the first time that either of them has ever seen Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I introduced my grandson and granddaughter to Star Trek, even though they have no memory whatsoever of it.
But that's how it's osmosis is how we watched it, right? Like my mother had it on, and then I eventually found myself just watching it, and who knows when it clicked that
that's right.
I wanted to watch it. But all of a sudden, it's like I don't know a time where I didn't watch any Star Trek.
Oh yeah, that's exactly my experience too. Oh, this is great.
Yeah. That's how it goes. Like it's osmosis, and TNG especially because it's so easy to jump in. You can do that. Like you can, somebody can sit with you and something crazy will happen on the episode and they'll be like, what is this? And then and then you find them sitting back and then you tell them about something and then they're like, huh. And then they start to watch it again because it's so accessible to people, I think.
That's true.
So it's like TNG is the easiest. And I think once you become a lover of TNG and you get more time under your belt of watching Trek and start to think about continuity, then you can jump into DS9.
Oh yeah.
Because it's so ingrained in, the Star Trek mythos that you kind of need to have some of that under your belt. Voyager is starting to get that kind of watch too, because again, Voyager's kind of one and done's as well. So you can kind of jump in with that and watch it as you want on your leisure. And I think that's happening. I don't know about Enterprise as much. I don't hear people talk about Enterprise like they do the other two, but I really do see a lot more people talking about it that are like, I just started watching it. Now I'm into season 3 and and they're just into it now.
Yeah. One of my proudest moments perhaps is at one point, like I said, watching this with my grandkids and Hadley, who is 5, almost 6. She was coloring or doing something on her iPad or something at the table, and she turned around and looked at the TV and said, "What is this?"
Yeah,
and I said,
"That's how it goes.
This is the greatest television show ever. It's called Star Trek."
It's great. I love it. I think that's how I never like gatekeepers about anything, right? And because I think that's always the wrong way to go. Like, it's just put it out there and let people just embrace it as they want to. And then you'll be surprised how many people get into it that way.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, we live in almost kind of like a new golden age of Star Trek because of how easily accessible it is to, a wider audience now.
And people are just, COVID changed so much with how we watch things now. And I think, I make a prediction with the writer's strike and the amount of shows that will probably get pushed back in terms of production. I think you'll see even more people as it starts to get cold again. We're home more. I think you're going to see more people watching Star Trek again because it's just so easy to jump into TNG like that.
Okay, so before we get into these episodes of Picard, it just occurred to me I wanted to ask you this, Darrell, because I had this thought about season 3.
Okay.
Are you a buyer of DVD sets or Blu-ray sets of television series?
I phased out. I used to, and then I went lo-fi in terms of having a lot of physical media stuff, and I kind of like. I say to myself, I know there's always a chance they can get rid of streaming.
Exactly.
Right? Because I stick with the Paramount Plus and all that. But if they do, Star Trek is not the show that they're going to get rid of, that I can't buy. Right? There's no way that I can't go and get the disc because they're all over the place. Like, there's no way I can't just buy a complete run of the show physical on, Amazon or something. I could push that button and just have it sent to my house just like that. Right? It's just that easy. So I don't worry about it. It's like I know it'll still be there.
Okay.
And if it's the end of the world, I think the last thing I'll be thinking about is what I'm going to be watching. Right?
Very true.
Because they always do that. It's the end of the world. What are you going to do? I'm like, thinking about watching an episode of any show is the last thing I'm going to be thinking about. I think survival will be number one. Yeah, maybe that'll be the case.
Yeah. So you have not bought any season of Star Trek Picard so far?
No, I've not bought any.
Neither have I. And obviously, for anybody who's listened to any of our episodes about Star Trek Picard, we were not big fans of seasons 1 and 2, but I actually thought, Darrell, that I might pick up the box set of season 3 when it comes out.
You know what? If I had to choose a show and a season to do that with, I could see Picard season 3 would be, because when they say something's made like a complete movie, this is, for me, this is what it feels like. I have a complete movie. Like I could see myself just sitting back, getting that whole thing. And, there'd be times when I'll just throw in those discs and just watch the whole thing. And it fits. Like, it's the work that they've done on this season is to the point where I believed the showrunner when he said to him, this is the movie. This is the movie. This is Nemesis, what Nemesis probably should have been. Instead of Nemesis, this is what they should have done, something like this.
Yeah. This
is what it feels like. It feels like I'm watching a movie where the cast is saying goodbye.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how much we want to dive into this, but Nemesis, I don't think Nemesis was considered the last next gen movie. It just happened to be. And I realize with what happens with Data, that seems like a finality. But
I think part of it, I think there was a chance they thought it would be it because they wrote Riker out. Because they wrote Riker out. Like, that's when you get rid of the original, when you start to get rid of any of the original, and he's one of the main big parts of TNG, you write him to go off and you're losing two. Actually, not. You're losing two characters, not just one. Mm-hmm. You lose two. When you're writing them out of being on that bridge, on that Enterprise, you pretty much are kind of thinking this could be the end of it.
That's you're right, but I know I always felt that there was an opportunity for another next gen movie. It just never materialized.
I think they were hoping it would do well and they would be able to do another, but
I mean, they could figure it out, right? As we are in the midst of the writers, the WGA writer strike stuff. Mm-hmm. Writers can figure out these things. We could have open the movie with Riker and Troy on the Titan, and that brings in the Enterprise. It's just like they could figure. I
don't think they could do. I don't want them doing movies anymore.
Well, no, I don't mean now. I meant back then.
Even back then, I think about it, and I'm like, because they don't ever, for TNG. I think for the original series, it was a little easier to do because it was so based on one and dones, right? And they weren't even that many seasons of the show.
Mm-hmm.
So you can kind of do more of a movie with them. And it feels a little bit more satisfying.
Sure.
You know, there's just first few things they should have probably done. Like they should have done more with getting the, you know, giving the others a little bit more of a story instead of just the three. But that was just how the show was done. But with TNG, you really need room. Like you can't do this in an hour and a half.
Oh yeah.
Like you couldn't even do this in 2.5 hours. You need room for this to really breathe, to give these people moments because they actually develop these characters.
Well, and that's the beautiful thing about getting this season 3.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, I think we should probably just get into the episodes then because we have 3 of them to talk about, which is was not part of the original plan because I think I mentioned this in an earlier season 3 episode that we were going to do 2 episodes and that bookended by the first and the last episode. But then Paramount or, you know, whoever made these decisions decided to make the last 2 episodes, episodes 9 and 10, what they called a 2-part finale. And I'm like, well, right. I guess we should do those last 2 episodes as a unit. And so that required us to, instead of doing episodes 6 and 7 and then 8 and 9, Darrell and I talked about it. And so we're going to talk about 3 episodes, 3 episodes of Star Trek Picard season 3 on this episode of Center Seat. So should we just dive into it, Darrell? Since there's so much to get into.
Well, yes. Only thing I wanted to say was I wish they had just said in the beginning of this, like, listen, you could probably break down 3 episodes per. Yeah. Like if you're gonna think of the show as broken down into 3 chapters in the 3 episode chapters as it goes up until you get to 8 and 9 and 10, which is gonna be pretty much a 2-part finale. Yeah. Like that's what they should have told us. Us podcasters, we should have known. They should have emailed us individually and told us these things so we can plan accordingly how we're going to do this. Shame on them. Yeah.
But, you know, we roll with the punches, and here we are.
That's what we do. We adapt. Isn't that what they say?
Are we the Borg? Does that make us the Borg?
We're the good Borg, I guess, maybe? I don't know.
We don't talk about the good Borg, Darrell. They're off in some other part of space.
My head hurts now. Let's get into this. Okay. My head hurts.
All right. So like I said, episodes 6, 7, and 8, The Bounty, Dominion, and Surrender. I got a brief synopsis here for each, and then we'll just start into our discussion about the episodes. All right. For The Bounty, now on the run, Picard and the skeleton crew of the USS Titan must break into Starfleet's most top secret facility to expose a plot that could destroy the Federation. Picard must turn to the only soul in the galaxy who can help him. An old friend, with returning cast members LeVar Burton as Commodore Geordi LaForge, his daughter Micah Burton as his daughter Alandra LaForge, Brent Spiner returns as Data and others, Daniel Davis as James Moriarty. Oh, I can't wait to talk about Moriarty with you, Darrell.
Yes,
and then a brief appearance at the end of the episode by Marina Sirtis as Troy. In Dominion, crippled, cornered, and out of options, Picard stages a gambit to trap Vadic and reveal her true motive, a gamble that puts the Titan in the crosshairs and forces Picard and Beverly to question every moral code they've ever held. And I cannot wait to discuss that aspect of this episode with you. Oh, my God. And we get a surprise at the top of that episode with Tim Russ returning as Tuvok.
Yes.
Or is he? And then in episode 8, Surrender, Vadic forces Picard to make an impossible choice, deliver what he can never give, or watch his crew perish. Their only salvation lies in the mind of an old friend and old foe, which was also a great little character situation. So yeah, lots of good things to talk about here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so The Bounty, episode 6. I'll just start off here with this, Darrell. Beverly talks about how Jack talked with imaginary things when he was a boy, and she thought he was gifted. Only it turns out he has been diagnosed with the same Irumodic syndrome that Picard had. And that supposedly explains some of the things that we've been seeing about Jack, or does it?
Mm.
But I like that episode, or like that scene with Beverly talking to Picard about that, and Beverly is such a good. She's a good mom, but she's a good parent, I guess, co-parent in this situation, because Picard's just now absorbing this news that, oh my God, I passed this on to my son, and now he's going to have to suffer through it.
Right. Well, it's funny because there's so many meta moments in the season. Like for the showrunner, I'm not putting it on him to be like he hated the first 2 seasons, and he's like, this is a fight. Like I'm doing a fight in this season about how bad season 1 and 2 is. I'm not saying that, but there are moments where characters say things, and you're like, it just kind of feels like they're kind of saying it, because she's like, no, we're not doing season 1 again, where you sit sad in a in a vineyard and complain about things you should have done. We got no time for that. Go see your son. This is not stuff you could have controlled. Support our child, and listen, get over yourself. Okay, we got no time for this.
Exactly. She's much sweeter about it, but yeah, she's like,
right.
Don't burden yourself with this. Go unburden our son.
Exactly.
She's such a good mom. I love that
it's
little.
Like, it's not about you.
Don't make it about you. Yeah.
Right. Don't make it about you, because that's what you do sometimes. She knows. That's it. They were friends for a long time, and then they became lovers. So she knows. She knows he has a tendency to be a little self-important about things. Right. So she kind of snapped him out of it before he got in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I liked how she did that. Yeah.
And they, of course, then they have this again, another conversation in 10 Forward. The next thing I wanted to dive into for this episode was Worf arrives on the Titan.
Yes.
Rafi's with him, of course.
VIP.
Worf tells Picard it's been 11 years, 5 months, and 4 days since they last saw each other.
Wow.
And I have loved Worf. I talked about this before in other episodes. And Worf is just the most fun character. Or he's more fun now than he's ever been for me in the whole of the Next Gen run.
Oh, I love it. I love how passive aggressive he was. He was basically like, you're a terrible friend.
Yeah. But that he's he has it down to the number of days since they last seen each other, and then he tosses in the grenade, the photon grenade of with the exception of the occasional message and the annual gift of sour mead.
Yeah, love it. He's like, and he's on top of that. He's like, you've been a bad friend to Ralphie too, right? So they both come in, they give him the look, like. Yeah, you're horrible. You are horrible with staying in touch with your friends.
Yes.
You were terrible at it.
Oh, yeah. Worf is just so Worf has often been kind of like the butt of a joke on occasion.
Yeah. For sure.
In the Next Gen run. But
he's the brute, right? He's the big muscle-headed brute, right? He's the one that shoot it. We should shoot it, right? Can we shoot it? It's like, all right, but he's changed.
Yeah, and he's obviously he's matured, and he's been on a journey and has some changes in his life, and has a new attitude. Which
it was great to put him with Raffi, because she's also someone who gets so wrapped up in her stuff emotionally that she doesn't think things through that she should.
She's like Worf, 20 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a good point. But his newfound peace of mind, or his pacifism or whatever, kind of rubs Riker the wrong way. And I love it when Riker's just poking at him, throughout this episode and some others, and he at one point Riker even is lamenting to Worf. He's like, you used to poke back.
Yeah. Riker's like the college friend, right? He's like, Remember, we used to get
Yeah,
drunk,
that's
and
right. Yeah.
we would play fight in the the holodeck, and we would do a whole bunch of stuff. And then you went and dated my ex-girlfriend, and then it got weird,
Oh,
and
yeah. That comes into play in the next episode. So
all right.
yeah, we gotta talk about
So
that.
there's that extra ribbing he was giving
Yeah.
Worf. I know he did it on purpose, like that extra ribbing, and he expected Worf to throw it back because
Yes.
Worf, no, he doesn't. And Worf is like, I think part of his throwback was like to be like, no, I don't do that anymore. I'm better than you.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
I'm enlightened now.
Well, your analogy to the old college friend thing, it's like, whenever I see my old friends, it's almost like we revert back to the people we were when we were hanging out together then, and Worf he's not doing that, but you could kind of see over the few episodes here, you can kind of see where Riker's kind of wearing him down a little bit, and maybe that peaceful facade that Worf has, where that peaceful demeanor is perhaps a bit of a facade, because he does let them have it a little bit.
Oh, he does. It's definitely he is definitely the grandpa of it. You know how you get away with stuff? It's like you play it off like, oh, I'm just grandpa. It's cool, but I still got some fire in me. Don't think that I don't have some of that same, oomph that I used to have when I used to run the streets back in the day when we were doing our thing, So he hides it, then he gives it back to you. Like it's just so passive aggressive, and then he's honest about it. Like he uses honesty as a weapon. That's what I like.
Well, what's that conversation there? So they're going to beam over to Daystrom Station and investigate, figure out what really was stolen and what, get some answers there, right? And so Riker's decided to join Worf and Rafi on this quest. And what is it? So Riker says something about, we're going to need some of that old Klingon charm or something like that, right? And then Worf starts getting into this whole, I find a peaceful approach is, better or something like that, right? And as they're beaming out, Riker's like, oh, we're all going to die.
Yeah. And as an audience, we just saw him kill 10 people? Like two episodes ago.
Yes.
So it's like, he's full of crap. Like he is just effing with him so much.
It was so much
fun.
Fun.
Yeah, that's the fun about it. It's like he has the best poker face, and he's learned in his old age to use his poker face well because he can get away with it. They don't know when he's joking or not, and that is hilarious. I love it. I love Worf. I love older Worf.
Yes.
Out here, just messing with people, just making them feel uncomfortable. I just love it.
After Next Gen ended its first run, there was a lot of talk of doing like a Captain Worf spinoff.
I would have loved it.
And back then I was like, oh please, I've had enough of Worf. On Next Gen and Deep Space Nine and all that stuff. Now, I would love to see a Captain Worf episode or a series.
Oh, for sure. I would love it. I would love it.
To go back to something, what did you call it? Star Trek? What was the
college years?
Well, your idea of doing anything in Star Trek.
Oh, well, having like they call it legacy now.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, you could do a brief set of episodes or a season, even a full season of Captain Worf when he was on the Enterprise E.
You could,
and explain that whole thing.
Because we're only doing you could with the world how it is now, you can get away with doing 6-part shows, right? You can get away with it. So why not? You can do a mini Voyager reunion.
Yep.
You could do a mix and match, a little bit of DS9 with some new characters, since some of them sadly have passed away, but you can kind of do a story with some of them together, kind of like a goodbye, maybe right into it, how other characters have passed away because of the actors. We've lost some of those actors. Like, you could do that. Like, you could, people want, like, that's the thing. Like, now with not only fans of it like us who have watched it, from jump, but now you have other people who are really getting into it because they keep watching the repeats because it stays on TV every day. Like, you can do that. You can play with that stuff now while these actors are still alive and vibrant and want to work on the show. They want to do it. They feel they're more comfortable with doing it now than they were. So do it. Like, don't wait for everybody to get to the point where they can't do it anymore. Just do it. Like, that's why I'm like, the Academy stuff. It's like, like, you can wait to do that. Like, you don't have to do that right now.
Yeah.
And that's probably a good thing why, of them doing the Section 31, just a movie instead of doing a series, because you don't need to do a series for Section 31. You really don't.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to be the focus on the one character, and she is amazing, and you can put her in a movie setting and she'll do great in it. And you don't have to, lock her down for too long because she's very popular in other movies and stuff. They want her for their other films and whatnot. So just have her do like an hour and a half kind of thing, 2 hours with commercials, if you want to do it that way, whatever way they want to do it. And then go off and do something else, like use do budget in another thing or whatever. We could do it that way, like, but do it now. Like, don't, just don't wait and lose the momentum that we have for this stuff right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the thing that gets me. It's like, you're wasting time, man. Y'all just sitting here like, this app was built off of Star Trek fans. Okay. It wasn't Yellowstone fans. Okay. Yellowstone was on Peacock. It was Star Trek. That was the thing that got people. So get it going.
Well, and so that whole idea of a potpourri of Star Treks, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of, I'm going to segue into this next thing through this, because it's kind of like the way that they peppered in all these little Easter egg type stuff when they arrive on Daystrom Station, because granted, we saw quick flashes of things like, I recognize what looked like another Genesis device.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out there's also something about a Thalaron generator, which is from Star Trek Nemesis.
Right.
We see a little caption as they walk by of this, I don't know, this tube or whatever, and it says James T. Kirk on it. They've got the body of former Captain James T. Kirk on Daystrom Station. It's like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
And then, of course, Worf being the like I said, the butt of a joke.
Right.
He's startled by a genetically modified attack tribble, and of course, Riker has to, poke fun.
Of course he does. Of course he does. He has to do it. It's and another thing, there's so many MVPs of this season. Like, Riker's another one where he plays him so well. Like, this is a Riker who's been through the loss of a kid. There's there's nothing worse than that. Like, he's fought death before, but to lose a child is even worse. And so there's a lifted of the weight on him. He's been through it. He's seen so much that he just knows it. Like, the actor, he just knows how to play Riker so well that he is just having so much fun doing it. Like, I forget how good, because he doesn't work in front of the screen as much anymore. Jonathan Frakes is still such a good actor, but he just directs more. There was a point where he just stopped acting more, and he started directing and producing. But he is so good in this. Like, it's just like he knows how to get serious when it's time to get serious. You feel it. It's genuine when he wants to show friendship. He does it when he's angry. He's able to just do it. Like, it's again, it's just like you forget these actors are good. Like
Yeah.
they didn't get them for no reason. Like these actors are good actors. That's why they picked them so many years ago.
Yeah, and I feel guilty about this because I always liked Riker. I'm forgetting the actor's name at the moment.
Jonathan
Jonathan
Frakes.
Frakes, yes, of course. I never, I thought Frakes was fine, but I always felt like they never really gave him opportunities to really shine as an actor on the show. There, a few episodes here and there, but his appearance in this season of Picard has just opened my eyes as to how comfortable Frakes is portraying that character at the point in time of that the character is in. He's not trying to play Riker as he was 30 years ago. He's playing him now, and it's not. I don't feel like it's just Frakes being Frakes under the guise of Riker. It didn't feel like that. He is acting to me, and so I agree. I've long said this in our discussions. I feel like he is the MVP of the show, and so he's continuing that with all of his scenes.
Yeah, he is so good.
Yeah,
so good.
We do find later, speaking of James T. Kirk, but we do find out that the reason that Vadic even went into Daystrom Station and stole the portal weapon and all that stuff was to cover up the fact that they actually stole the human remains of Jean-Luc Picard's body.
Right.
So, and we get I'm fast forwarding just a bit, but we get that scene with Data showing the body of Picard. And so we're like, what the hell is that about? So, which I think comes into the next episode. But before we get to that, we're at Daystrom Station. And who shows up? Well, first we see a crow, a holographic crow. And when I first saw that,
Darrell,
yes. Did you recognize what the crow was from? Do you remember that episode?
I do, but it was cheated in me. It was cheated for me because they had mentioned that he was going to be in this season already.
Exactly. Moriarty.
So as soon as I see that, I'm like, oh, of course. Like it's got to be connected.
Well, okay. So since you mentioned that, yes, because in the run up to the show, to the season, or even the trailer, I mean, they even showed Moriarty in it, or at least hinted at it. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, they hinted at it.
Right. Yeah. But so I thought that originally that Moriarty might be the big bad of the season. And I thought, well, that would be very interesting, to have this self-aware hologram come back 30 years later and want some sort of revenge or whatever and causing havoc. Obviously that did not happen because Vadic was introduced as the big bad, and then we have this other thing that's part of it. So, but then
I thought it too. You're not alone, because the way they showed it, it made you think that they made you think that he was one of the big bads. They made you think Lore was one of the big bads with him.
Exactly. Lore,
like it was going to be a supervillain thing.
A next gen supervillain team up or something. Which kind of happens. We'll get to that.
Kinda, yeah. But he's just a weapon in a particular episode. That's pretty much it.
And before this point, they talked about, I think Rafi even says something about lethal AI at Daystrom Station.
Right.
And as soon as we see more, when I first saw the crow, I thought of the episode where Data is dreaming. Where Data has dreams, I think it was called Phantasms.
I think that's what it was.
It has nothing to do with Moriarty, but it was like you said, it was a clue. And so, but if you are a fan of Next Gen and you watch those episodes, and so I'm thinking, well, there's Data. This is where Data comes in. Moriarty shows up, and at first I thought he was the lethal AI, and it sort of is corroborated by the fact that he shows up, greets Riker and company, and then shoots at them with an old fashioned pistol
Right.
that actually has bullets that's going to kill him if they get hit, but they can't shoot him because he's a hologram.
Right.
But then Riker is hearing this music that's playing, the notes that shows up, and he starts to recognize it. That's one of the great things I like about this, is that they take this thing about Riker, this minor character item that, he's a trombone player. He's a musician.
Yeah. Never mentioned again, but not in this show. They
Right.
haven't mentioned it. Right.
Yeah. They could have easily just, threw a bow on it and said, "Oh yes, I used to play the trombone, or I do play," whatever. They don't, but they rely on us old time fans to recognize the fact that he there is that connection between his musicianship and the fact that he's going to recognize these notes, which gives him a clue as to what's really going on here. And then we get this wonderful scene because he's figured it out, because it's Pop Goes the Weasel is the melody. And we get this, and I was really curious your reaction to this, where not only as Riker is figuring it out and is explaining it to Worf and Rafi that it's an old friend, and then we get the scenes from the first episode of The Next Generation,
which I'm glad that instead of having some long exposition about it, I'm glad that they thought to themselves, let's just show the scene, which also advertises the first episode of the show, and let's do it that way. Let's just do it that way. It's a lot better. And it allows, because I love when they read the room and they're like, people have access to this show, period. Like they do, right? It's just so easy to have access to the show. We don't have to do the explanation. Just show it and then let them find it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all they need to do. And it made sense. It explained it. The whistle, he did it in the first episode. Done. That's all we needed. And then if you want to, you can go back and you can watch those episodes and get it even better. So it's great.
Yeah.
It's a great, that's how you do a callback. That's how you do a love letter and a callback to something.
Well, yeah. And an introduction, because as we're seeing this memory play out of Riker's first meeting with Data in the holodeck, we come upon a Data in Daystrom Station. Only he looks a little different.
Little bit.
Yeah, Data's aged a bit.
Well, tiny bit.
Which I thought was a great way to address. Everybody else obviously is looking older. While Data could, we talked about this before. Data the android could make himself look older, but instead of it being explained away like that, what they did is I thought they took another step forward in that, because we see there's a message from Alton Sung and from the first season of Picard, who appeared in the first season of Picard. Anyway, he has done some additional work. He's created this new version of Data, but it's not just Data. It's what do you say? It's lore. It's B4. It's lol, which is that that's a minor callback.
It's great because Soon is known to be irresponsible, so it's not out of thin air that he would do something this insane, right?
Yeah, and he says and a whole lot of Data, and I think that's when we actually get to see Brent Spiner in his glory as the new version of Data, which is
the Soons. All of them are terrible. They're just they're just one person, and they just get reborn every 100 years, and because they all are terrible and they make bad decisions and when they build things and they don't think things through, and then they get murdered by their creations, and
they're like the definition of mad scientist.
Yeah, they are. It's like they just. I want a story like the comics where you just find out that each Soon kills the other Soon. Like the other one goes in time and he kills the other Soon, and then downloads the memories into the younger Soon, and then continues the stupidity of the evil scientist stuff.
He's almost a Kang like character.
He is a Kang-like character because they all do the same thing. It just never ends. Like it just keeps going and going and going. How terrible this person is. They do one thing. One redemptive act, right? Per death, per Soon. Only one. They only do one. The last one was he gave his body, the golden body, to Picard instead of taking it for himself. Like that was the one thing. The other thing is he built a Data, and after Lore, he put him to sleep for a minute, and he built the Data, but with morals. like that was the only redemptive thing that Soon did at all.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah. So, yeah, like you said, he created a new Golem body, a synthetic that is this new Data, but it's not just Data. It's all these things.
And it ages. And it's already old.
Exactly. It's already old. Can you imagine, Darrell, 30 years ago, or 25 years ago, or whatever it was, you go to sleep, quote unquote dead, like Data in Nemesis. And then all of a sudden you wake up and you're in this, 25-year-old older body.
No, because I was like, why couldn't you build me a new one with a 6-pack and and I can do all kinds of crazy, smooth, fast running, fly. Make me fly. Give me jetpacks, like built-in jet, everything. I want the whole shebang. Like my own transporter built in, everything. Like give me that stuff. Like, but no.
It was interesting because they referred to the Data is referred to in the logs as the Daystrom M510.
Right.
And what other M5 is famous in Star Trek? The M5 computer from the Ultimate Computer episode.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
And I'm like,
I need a new brain. My positronic network is old.
Is that a callback, or is that just a weird happenstance that they did that?
I don't know. This show does so many. I don't know. It could be because the guy doing it really. This is a guy that really is a Star Trek fan. Like this is a guy that really is a TNG fan. The one running the show. So I don't know, man. I can't. I like. Part of me wants to be like, nah, maybe what. But then I go back and I think, well, with him, I don't know, man. He really thought about a lot of stuff with this season. So I don't know. I just don't know why they didn't make him the showrunner in the first place.
Well, and that's not the only thing in this really good, meat of the episode. Because then we get the reunion of Commodore now, LaForge.
Yes.
And his former commander at the Fleet Museum. So they had to split up. So Picard has this idea to, I guess, I wasn't quite sure what he, because he was like, okay, Riker, you guys go and figure out what was stolen. I have an idea. We're going to go to whatever the Fleet Museum is actually called. And was it just to ask for Geordi's help, or was it something else? I wasn't quite clear on that.
I think it was like they needed to hide, and they knew that he would be an ally to them. Like he's one of the few that he knew wouldn't turn them in.
I think that's it. Yeah. They expected to go to LaForge and say, we need your help.
Yeah, because they needed to run. Yeah, they had to run quickly, and they didn't have, they didn't have a plan. And it's Geordi, right? Geordi would never turn his back on us.
Well, and yes, exactly. And so, okay, I think maybe we're jumping just ahead just a little bit because I just want to talk about the introduction of Commodore LaForge, which Commodore, which means he actually outranks Riker.
Yeah,
at this point. So I thought that was interesting. But he's running the Fleet Museum, which we have seen before in the credit sequence with that station. And so he's the one that runs that, and his daughter's with him. Ensign LaForge on the Titan doesn't really want to engage with this plan because there's some friction between her and her father, which that was interesting as well. But, Geordi does come aboard the Titan. has his reunion. I like what he says to the group after he's materialized on the transporter platform. He was thinking about, should I do like a curt handshake or an uncomfortably long hug? And he decides to go with the hug, and he hugs Beverly first. But he's not too keen to see his former commander.
No.
He's a little chilly towards Picard.
Yeah. Well, he's a bad friend, man. We all established Picard has been terrible in terms of staying in touch with anybody.
And not only that, he's in danger. He's now endangered Geordi's daughters.
Right.
In particular, Sydney.
Sydney's been the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
His other daughter's safe working with their father. Like you know what? In the rewatch of this episode, I understand Geordi more.
The way, okay, that's what I wanted to get into with you, is like, what was your reaction because like I said, he doesn't want to help at first.
Right. Watching as a fan, I was like, Geordi, what's wrong with you?
Exactly, right?
Like, get in there and help them, and let's do
Why
this.
would you not?
Like,
yeah.
Right. But you have to think of it from the character's point of view. He's coming at it from a father who has not been in any adventures since, right? I'm, as Commodore of this museum, he's pretty much been doing tinkering, right, with his daughter. And so there is a more of a, as we get older, right, there's a lack of fear we had when we were younger, right? We all know that.
Mm-hmm.
But as well, more than even I do, when there's children involved, right, there's a different kind of fear that comes with that. And imagine if your kid has been on the ship, your kid is out there, you didn't even want her to go to Starfleet, really. You wanted her to be a scientist with you so she'd be safe. But she went out and she's, doing her thing, and you worry about her anyway. But now Picard's in the mix, and when Picard is in the mix, hey, stuff happens, right?
Well, and Geordi even says to him, leave it to you to turn fatherhood into an intergalactic incident.
Exactly, because that's what he does. That's just what he does. So I get it. He's already. It's not even that he's mad at Picard, because he knows Picard is just Picard. He saves the universe. That's what he does. He's just scared for his daughter. Like, he's just mad that his daughter is in this sphere. Because once you get into the Picard sphere, you're stuck in it. Like, you love it.
He's like a black hole.
You want to do more because it's like a black hole. Picard is like Kirk used to be before him. It makes you want to do more heroic stuff.
Yeah.
You can't help it. You want to be a hero with him, right? You want to do that. But people die when they're not Picard. Like, Picard always comes back, but everybody else is in danger. Even Data. Data died because of Picard the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it's got to be in your head, right? And he was an android, almost an indestructible android, and he died. So just imagine your daughter, your young daughter, she doesn't have the experience of going out here doing all this stuff. She just learned to drive. In his eyes, she just learned to drive yesterday. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so I get it.
Like you said, as a fan, I'm like, Geordi, what the hell's wrong with you? But it was instantly followed by, he's reacting as a father, and I completely understand why he would react in this way.
Right.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. And the other part of why he brought him to Geordi also was that if you rescue a version of Data, who is the only one that knows Data more than anybody else alive, if Soon is dead, right? It's Geordi. Geordi's been in Data's head more than anybody else since
literally.
Soon. Right, exactly. And so that's the other reason to go there also, is because they need that information that Data would have.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the other reason. I forgot to mention that too, because that's the other.
And the flip side to this whole Geordi as a father thing was the scene that, and I also love this.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, he and Sydney have a conversation, and basically, Geordi's being all dad,
right.
Dad like, well, I worked it out. you're going to come with me to the station. Picard and company are going to leave. Picard's going to say that, you had nothing to do with you. He coerced you guys or whatever. He's trying to save his daughter from the repercussions of this incident. And she's like, no, she says, I can't do that to my family, essentially. And he's like, they're not your family. And she's like, yes, they are. You taught me that.
Yeah. You forget all that. Yeah. Right? It's like, no. Oh, the police are coming to take me away for what I said. But he's like, he just totally forget, because you don't listen to what a parent. What do you, when you become a parent? It becomes the thing of when they get older and do something. It's like, don't do what I said. Don't do what I did. Do what I said. Like, don't. I'm only right when it's what I want you to do. But don't. And it doesn't make sense. And it's because it's all made out of fear. That is the one thing you have to let kids know when they get older, is why their parent is being erratic about certain things. It's like, first off, it's because they are daily scared to death something is going to happen to you.
Yes.
It doesn't matter if you're 25 or 26. Doesn't make a difference.
That's right.
They are scared to death that something's going to happen to you. Period. And then take it from there.
Yeah, exactly. And they do take it from there because they it's a little quick, a little easy, but I still love the progression of this. I
did, and LeVar Burton is such a great actor and director also now. Yeah. So he gets it. He gets it behind the camera and he gets it in front of the camera. Even with those prosthetics in his eyes, there is
I was just gonna say, it is. He emotes so well.
Oh my God,
with his eyes.
So well.
And
I feel it. You feel it, right? Exactly. You feel the fear. You feel the fear and the love.
The love and the pain.
Proud he is of his kids, my God, yes. Right?
Yes.
It's all in his eyes. And I'm like, how do you do that when you got prosthetics? There are actors who can't do that, and they have no prosthetics on, and they're trying to be human, and they can't do it.
And think of how much he was hobbled by wearing that visor on 7 seasons of Next Gen, right?
Yeah.
How we missed out on how good he was because of that. So I'm so glad that they changed that, because now 25 years later we get this wonderful these acting moments, and that's not just the one with his daughter. And then I think in the next episode, or maybe the one after that, with him and Data. So
so this is what we've been. This is why I say the showrunner for this show is a fan of TNG, and he thought it was also bullshit when you did not have Geordi in the season where they find Data again. It was bull. Picard is not Data's best friend.
Right.
It was always Geordi.
Yeah.
Picard was his mentor. Geordi was his friend. His best friend. That's what it was. Picard was more like a father figure to him. And you could, and the person doing, I'm sorry, but the person that did the first 2 seasons, I'm sorry, but you were not someone who watched TNG. You might have watched At It, but you did not watch TNG. I'm sorry, because you can't. That is not, anybody who watched TNG knows. That's why most, if not all of us, one of the first criticisms of it was, how in the world can you have Data die and you not have Geordi at his side? That is ridiculous. It just doesn't make any sense. And you could tell that this showrunner was like, I gotta fix this, and that was why we got that. We get the scenes that we're gonna get where he has that conversation with Data, about it. So it's just, oh my gosh, it's just, I know I feel so bitter how good this season is, because it makes me go, we could have had this all along.
Yeah. Well, and we get another pairing with Geordi, since we're celebrating the Geordi love here.
Yeah.
With our beloved Shaw, Captain Shaw.
I love him.
What is, I've forgotten now already what dipshit from Chicago line is that. So So him being a former engineer, and he has hero worship for Commodore LaForge. It was that whole scene was so endearing to me. And Geordi kind of rips him one by stating the state of his ship, the Titan. And but then he turns around, like it's amazing that you've kept it running as you have. Complimenting Shaw's abilities as captain and engineer. And then the line, Shaw's line, yeah, it's been a weird week. I found out after having watched this episode twice by listening to Todd Stashwick's appearance on the Shuttlepod 1 podcast. That line was ad-libbed.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah. So they had a whole thing. The way he reacted, I forget what the original line was, but he asked if he could do that line, and they kept it in.
I love it.
Yeah. Not enough Shaw in this episode for my taste, but there's a whole lot of old next gen characters coming in with this, and not only that, old ships. Can we talk about the ship porn in this episode?
Yes, this is the stuff that us old people love.
Oh my God.
Those old fans, this is what we love about Star Trek. One of the many things.
Yeah, yes, exactly. The ship I've talked about this before. The ships are next to the characters is my most favorite thing about Star Trek. But
yes.
It's the Fleet Museum. And so when the Titan first arrived, we see all these ships just kind of parked on these circular pod things. I guess, I don't know what they are, but they're just parked there. And it's just a quick introduction, and we kind of see some ships. But then later in the episode, Seven's on the bridge. Jack joins her, and they are looking at the ships. And Jack talks about his favorite, the NCC 1701A, Kirk's ship. He identifies that as his favorite, which mine too.
Yeah.
There's also the USS New Jersey, which is the original Constitution class. Mm-hmm. So we get that. I think that's maybe the first one that we saw in the scene. It was the first one. So we get to see that nice progression of ships, right? So we get the original Constitution class. We get the A7 points the camera at the Voyager. The original Voyager is there.
I love when they do the music for the show.
That was so cool. Also, yeah. 7 even says, "I was reborn there."
Yeah.
And just the whole 7's journey with all this stuff, from the previous seasons and now to this, it's just been a wonderful journey with that character. Jack even says at that point, we all long for connection, which will play into some things later. Mm-hmm. And yeah, right. Yeah. And then we also see, which plays into the plot for this episode, the HMS Bounty, the Klingon bird of prey that Kirk and company commandeered in Star Trek 3, and we saw it in Star Trek 4. And of course, that gives Jack the idea. Again, Jack coming up with a plan to circumvent a situation or to give them an advantage, which I'm glad they keep doing that. So it's not just like just this one-off thing that Jack just happened to do. No, they're showing him to be an intelligent and intuitive potential leader by coming up with this. Now, his plans don't always work out exactly right, because even though he convinces Sydney to go to the Bounty to go get the cloaking device, which I think actually Sydney came up. She was thinking of that in an earlier scene with her father, or maybe that was it was Alondra who came up with that. I think she was starting to say something about it, and he cut her off.
Yeah, because she knew what she was starting to come up with the plan, but then her father wasn't allowing her to say it, and Jack listened to her because he's got the hots for her, and you learned that really in this episode too. Like you can tell that he really connects with her, and he's got the eyes for her, but without being creepy, which I really appreciate. Is that It's hard. It's hard to show a male character being interested in a female character and not making it an old style creepy thing, right? Like I'm gonna keep coming after you until you say yes, kind of thing, right? They didn't do that. Like it just was. He's just attracted to her. Like he likes her mind. He listens to her. He's like, wait, she's smart.
Well, and they also share a moment, Sydney and Jack, because when Jack realizes that things aren't that Sydney doesn't have this stellar relationship with her father, and of course, his situation with his father.
He relates.
Yeah. And then I think that's
they commiserate.
I think that's the moment where he's like, I think that's where he really notices her.
Well, I love the connections where she's beautiful, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's intelligent. She's gifted in flight, right? She knows engineering. Like these are things they all have in common. They've all, like they have these things in common. She has issues with her father not having the role, not being close to her father like she would want to be, not being able to kind of reach him, not to be able to connect with her father like she would want to. And now that we know all the stuff that happened with him, he knew about him, but didn't connect with his father like he'd wanted to either. So they have that connection as well. And so it's all there why he would like her. Like, it's not just, oh man, she's hot and she came on the bridge and I like her. No, it's she is incredible, like, right? And they have things in common. Like, he's flew across, he knows how engineering, he's had to fly ships, he's broken a lot of stuff probably, right? Because they've always been on the run.
Well, and that leads into them going to get the cloaking device from the Bounty and just trying to connect it
because they're not engineers. They know some stuff, but they're not engineers. Okay.
And that's what convinces, I think, in the end. So, well, this is also the scene between Geordi and Sydney, where Sydney basically, what is it she says to him? How she was more into flying things instead of the putting them back together, but. She says something about how she wrecked those things that she was flying
on purpose,
but so that they could rebuild them together. Oh my God, that was so sweet.
And he just didn't see it. Like, he just thought she was just being reckless, right? Because sometimes you don't see it when someone's trying to connect, even your own kid. Like, you're so
you could love your child so much, and yet still have a blind eye towards the person that they are.
Totally.
And I just love that aspect coming out here.
You learn, I don't know if you had this experience, but your parents kind of learn more about you as they meet other people that know you. And then they kind of look at you in another light as an adult. You kind of hear good things about when they meet your friends or something, or your significant others. And they say things, and then they, you see a different look in their eyes at you, where it's like, what? That boy that used to just jump off the roof? Is that what?
Yeah.
What? I never saw this. Like, when did he become this responsible person? What is going on here? I didn't even think he would survive after 12. Like, what are you talking about? So it was just nice to. There's so many moments in this that are just incredible to see.
Yeah. That's all my notes for this episode, Darrell. Was there anything else that you wanted to touch on?
Well, the only other thing I would say is I get Geordi feeling fear, though, because remember, he lost his mother on duty on a starship.
Yep.
Yeah. So I get it. I like, that adds to it as well. Like, to lose a parent, it's a different heartbreaking thing to lose a parent too, right? You add that to the mix of all this stuff about fear. Like, she served on a ship, died. I couldn't help her. I couldn't save her. It's got to be it's got to be there. It's right. It's got to, that part of you. You don't forget that.
Oh yeah.
It's not like she died of old age. She was able to just, live out her life and die peacefully of old age. No, she died on duty. So that's also got to be part of the fear that he has.
Before we get out of this episode, Darrell, I have a couple bits of trivia that I thought was interesting about this episode. And I stole this from Memory Alpha. So this episode the Bounty. This episode marks the first time that the main cast of The Next Generation have appeared together since Nemesis, Star Trek Nemesis.
Yes.
Of course, minus Denise Crosby and Will Wheaton.
Right.
And then also, it marks the first time in Star Trek that regulars from 3 different series appear together on screen on a 4th show. So obviously, Next Gen, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager.
Yep.
So I thought that was neat.
Love it.
Wasn't computing in my mind when I was watching it, but yeah.
Oh, it computed in mine. I was sitting there like, what? It's like after I saw Tuvok and then, it kept going through, I was like, what? Like when they were showing it, because that's coming up. When we see Tuvok, it's like, this dude is just putting people in from all the shows. I'm like, this is incredible, Terry. You are awesome to me.
Should we jump into episode 7, Dominion, then?
Yes.
Okay, well, since you're talking about Tuvok, we see this episode, Dominion, starts with Captain Tuvok, sort of.
Wow. Sort of. Yeah.
So, since I just talked about some trivia, as of this episode, Tim Russ, who plays Tuvok, has now appeared in 4 different Star Trek series. Obviously, Star Trek Voyager is a regular. He also appeared in episodes of The Next Gen and Deep Space Nine, and appeared in Star Trek, the movie Star Trek Generations.
Yeah.
So yeah, that guy is. I mean, he was also what he was up for the role of. I forget now. He auditioned for a role on Next Gen. I forget which.
Didn't he audition for Geordi?
Was it? Yes, it was Geordi. You're right.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, they mentioned he auditioned for Geordi. Yeah.
But then became the Vulcan.
He also did a show with a certain other captain. Do you know which captain that was?
Certain other captain. No, I'm blanking on this. What is it?
He did this is for the procedural, the real old people, because I am an old person. I watch all procedurals. He played. He was in an episode, I think, if I'm not mistaken, he was in an episode of NCIS New Orleans with Scott Bakula.
Oh, really?
They threw a couple of them throughout the show. I think they threw a couple of people from the Star Trek universe in.
Oh, that's cool.
To guest star in a few of the shows here and there.
I'm not an NCIS watcher, but now that I know that, I'm going to have to seek out those episodes where we've had some Star Trek alum in it. So I assumed have they had people from Enterprise show up in that show?
I don't think, actually, it's funny. I don't think they did.
Well, that's a lost opportunity. Back to Tuvok though, it opens the episode opens with seeing Captain Tuvok, and you're like, oh my God, it's Tuvok, right?
I know, tricked me.
But it turns out that it's not Tuvok. But did you think? Okay, so there's this thing where Seven is talking to Tuvok, and Picard and others are kind of off screen,
right?
So they're not seen, which was wise, I guess.
Right.
And she's testing Tuvok,
right? And
she says something, and then Tuvok responds, and then she nods over at Shaw, and what's her name? Tavine, the Vulcan.
Mm-hmm.
What is she, the science officer on the Titan? Did we already talk about this?
I think she was a science officer.
She's wearing blue, so I assume she is.
Yeah, I think she's a science officer.
But
she's a Vulcan. You have to be science officer.
But I think she's scanning the
voice recognition.
The voice, exactly, right? So and they've talked about this before on the show about how the changelings can basically mimic you to a point.
Right.
And so they're testing that, which very good. But Seven gives the nod, and then she launches into some questions for Tuvok, and Tuvok's responding, and she seems satisfied with all this. But then she tests him again about something that they did on Voyager.
This is someone, and remember, Terry Metalis has also worked on Voyager,
right?
So this is someone who knows Voyager, because when Seven has a great poker face. So she's super. People forget how smart she is. She is someone who has the combined knowledge of like how many like all these different species that were assimilated. She has that. She has that combined experiences of a lot of these people, and she's worked with Janeway, man. She's been through the whole thing with Captain Janeway. I liked how they played it, where she wanted him to feel comfortable, like he was believed, and then put his guard down, and then hit him with another trivia question.
See, that was the thing where I wasn't quite following, because it seemed like she was satisfied that it was Tuvok. They have a brief conversation, exchanging information, and then she hits him with the zinger. Because
we all know, like in every show, this has been the case when there's been imposters, right? Where you try to act like you try to say something that an imposter would know. And so it would expect you to do that, right? And it'd be on guard about it. So pretend you're good with it. Like, oh yeah, I believe it. I'm just a dumb human, right? Dumb solid, right? You tricked me, right? And then slip one more in. She slipped two in.
Yeah, how tactical of her.
Very because she's great at tactical. That's her thing.
You know what? So, this shows her. You know, because she's sitting in the captain's chair doing this, right? How great! I did not pick up on this. I thought it was a weird. I thought it was an oddity that the way they did it, but the way that you just described that to me, that makes perfect sense, and it shows her to be even more captain material.
Yes, because Harry Kim would have fell for it. He would have just been like, "Oh, okay, it's cool."
Yeah,
and then he would have did the whole thing.
Good point.
Seven's like, hold on, let me make you think, because everyone underestimates Seven. That's how they treat her. Plus, she's pretty, so the aliens have been like throughout Voyager, they always underestimate her because of her beauty, right?
Yeah.
And that's don't let the bodysuit fool you. I'm super smart and I have all these experiences, and so I know stuff. And so she played it off. She was like, "Oh, all right, yeah. Everything's great. Then I'm going to mention two things and see if you catch me." And it worked.
Yes, it did.
That's how you do it. It got me because I was like, "Oh shoot, why she? Oh man, she threw that in there." And I was like, "You're right. Like, there's no way anybody else worked on your implants. They only worked on your implants on Voyager. Yeah. Nobody else could touch your implants. She's very personal about that stuff. The doctor was the only one who touched those implants."
It was really cool to see Tuvok again.
Yes, I loved it.
Even though he looked, he's Vulcan, but he looked even older than some of the other characters.
I know, they made him look.
With the white hair,
older. But yeah, they really let him look older than. But remember though, he was alive during.
That's true. He is much older than I'm probably thinking of.
He was alive when Kirk was alive.
That's right.
He was alive back then.
Yeah, because didn't they retcon him to be on the Excelsior?
He served on Sulu. Yeah, he served with Sulu, so he was alive he probably was on the ship when. He was on the ship when. Discovered Country, right? Yep. He was on that ship.
Yeah.
That's when he was serving.
Although technically he didn't have pointed ears in the movie, but then they I said, then later they made it to where it was Tuvok.
Yeah, they did the whole Klingoned it away. They were like, don't worry about it. The ears were there. He was young. The ears were still going through puberty. He was young. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Well, speaking of an older character, an older Star Trek character, we get, and we've talked about him before, but we get a lot of scenes here with Data and Lore. Lore is having a lot of fun, I think, in these scenes.
Yeah, Lore is such a dick.
Oh my God,
such a dick.
But it seems like Spiner is having so much fun playing, maybe even more fun playing Lore now than he did in the past. And maybe it's just because of the insults that he's throwing out left and right in those scenes with the various characters. So yeah, I Lore, I think we talked about this previously, where we thought maybe he might be one of the big bads. Turns out not really, but he's certainly an impediment to us getting data, right? And he seems to be taking over because there's in the previous episode, Sung, or at least Geordi, I'm forgetting now if it was last episode or this episode, Geordi talks about how there's a partition in Data's brain that is separating lore and data, and there's the other aspects as well, just kind of floating out there. But there's a concern, because they need data to help them figure out what's going on, what Data knows about Daystrom.
Yeah, Sword is treating them like two pets, like two pet dogs, where you keep them in different crates, right? You don't put them together. You don't let them be together because there's the mean right. one and there's the nice one, and you don't want the mean one to beat up on the nice one, so you keep them both separated.
Bad things will happen if the partition is separated, and they talk about that.
Yeah,
and just the whole idea of losing Data again. That scene where Geordi's explaining all this. If
that's what I'm talking about.
If they release or remove the partition,
right,
Data may not survive. And so that Picard's and Geordi's reaction to potentially losing Data again, I thought was really touching in that scene.
Oh, I loved it. This is what fans wanted. Like this is the thing that fans wanted in the first season, and you can tell that the showrunner was like, I have to make sure that he gets his moment. Like I think LeVar Burton probably was like that too. Like because I think they did say that they were going to have him in it, but only I think they had asked him to be in it, and it was such a short part or something like that, and he turned it down.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, I could have sworn I remember them saying that they had asked him to do like a cameo, like they did with Jonathan Frakes and Sirtis and Maria Sirtis, and he was like, I don't, I'm mother effing LeVar Burton. You don't put me in as a side, 2-second cameo. Are you crazy?
He certainly got more than a cameo in this season for sure.
Damn right.
And then but then later in the episode, we get more of Geordi and Data because now Lore has essentially taken over Data's body and the ship. And he's causing some shenanigans that we'll talk about in relation to Vadic too.
Yeah, I'm like, why did you leave him connected?
Right. I mean, Geordi may be a legendary engineer, but
come on. Like Geordi, come on now. Lore is terrible.
But we do get that scene where Geordi is, we've seen scenes like this so many times in shows where, you're trying to get the person you love back in that situation, right? And he's imploring Data inside of this shell to assert himself over Lore. And just that I thought that was a really emotional scene where, this is the scene that I've been wanting with, like you're talking about, with Geordi and Data. This mostly vindicates the lack of Geordi in the previous stuff with Data's death, right?
Yeah, sure.
I just again just the way that LeVar Burton can emote is just incredible.
Oh my God, those again, it's crazy, right? How do you emote with cybernetic eyes, implants in your eyes, and yet when he's almost about to break down. It's like seeing a best friend who's passed away and you get over it, and then you see them in flesh and blood, and you're like, it would break me down. It would break me down too. And so to see that, it was just, that is the reaction you expect Geordi to have. So it worked. Like it really, really worked when they did that scene. It was amazing. So it's like, LeVar Burton, you don't have to tell him what you need. Just say, this is the scene. And he's like, oh, I know how I would feel as Geordi. He knows Geordi, right? He's like, I know how I would feel. I got this. Don't worry about it. I'll give it to you.
Another emotional scene that I want to touch on here, but from a kind of a different perspective was with Vadic. And so there's a couple things in this episode with Vadic, right? The first one was Vadic's conversation with the face, that, which, the face is like, get Jack, or, basically, or else, right? But right after they have their conversation, she walks back to her captain's chair and again, the eyes, right? I
Yeah.
swear there are tears in her eyes after this conversation. And
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, is this because, we've seen her before, Vatic, basically cut off her hand, which initiates this communication with the face. And it doesn't look, like, or it looks like it's painful to do
Yes,
that.
very much so.
And so what was it, that, or was it more emotional response? Because
That was emotional pain.
okay, but was it just pain, or is there fear there as well? Because it seemed like,
I think there's fear in it too. Because remember, when we do learn what has happened to her, she can take pain. She's been tortured for years,
okay.
right?
Yep.
They were tortured for years, like repeatedly. So she's got that part down. This is not torture, pain, crying. This is emotional tears and anger. I think it's partly anger too. Like she wants them so bad. Like she wants this revenge. Like
she has that
it's
anger,
an emotional thing
towards the Federation, towards Starfleet. Yeah, get that. I guess where I wanted to go with this with you was what is the deal with the face and these changelings? What are the changelings getting out of this besides their revenge? And maybe that's it. But it seems like the face has some sort of control over Vatic in some, not like literally, but
well, I mean, are we going to jump? I mean, by saying it, we'd be jumping ahead. We wouldn't. I mean, if we had just watched this without knowing how the show ends, then we would have no idea yet, right? But because we do know, I get who. Because at first I was like, "Who is this alien?" And I don't recognize this alien from anywhere,
right?
But then you see it was a fake, right? It was a fake out.
Sure.
With the alien, it's who we know it is, but to get the revenge that the Vedic wants them, like the Vedic wants complete death for solids. Like the Vedic is like, after what happened, I want complete annihilation. But to get it, they need that person or thing to get it done. They can't do it alone. They can't just they already tried the terrorist attack stuff in the war, in the Dominion War. It didn't work.
So it's just it's a marriage of convenience,
right?
Between
because
the
they're
face
dying.
and Vatic.
Because they're already dying. Remember? Like there's two things happening. Like they're dying naturally because these changelings don't live as long. And they're in a constant state of pain. Remember, they said that they were in a constant state of pain. Well, three things. And on top of that, vengeance for what happened to them, because the others of them were tortured and killed. And then the ones who survived the torture are in the state that they're in. So you have that as well. I think the way she's playing it, and she's incredible at playing multi-layered, like we talked about with the Tarantino movie she was in, right? She's good at switching. She can code switch very quickly when she's going through something.
Yeah.
And I think that all of it is that. I think she's doing the code switch. I think Amanda Plummer's playing it where I'm supposed to be someone who's been violated, right? I've been completely violated. Not only have I been violated, I watched as my family, because they think of each other as family, because they're connected to each other. They give birth to each other, right? I watched my family be violated. I was violated. I'm in a constant state of pain. The only way I can get revenge on the people that did this to me is to follow this thing that hates them even more than I do. I'm sure. I'm sure they know the secrets because they've gotten into Starfleet. Right? She's been able to get into the records of all of the Starfleet officers. She has access to all of that stuff because of the infiltration. So she knows that that thing has more hate for them than she does, almost. And so all of that's in there.
So, and since you're talking around it, but they basically show the origin of Vatic,
right?
And why she hates the Federation so much, why she hates Starfleet. And And not only that, but we discover that she took on the face of her torturer.
Yeah.
That's how much she was affected, and also the hatred she bears. So it's a constant reminder of what happened to her by taking on this visage of the scientist who did these torturous experiments on her.
I
And her
mean,
kin.
yeah, to do what they did. I mean, I don't know how else to put it, but it's a form of rape.
Yeah.
Physical rape. I mean, she rips them apart. She sticks them in certain forms. She burns them. She and this happens repeatedly over and over and over and over again. Like all sorts of violations they're put through for years. Like, who knows how long it took for them to do this to them before they were able to get free, before they were able to evolve. Like, they had to be put, like, to get it to the point where you spurt them to evolve past this is something that should have taken centuries to do. For them to do that because of because that's what happens in nature, right? There's a violent change in nature, and that causes changes to the living things in that environment. And that, that's a natural thing. So for something like that to happen, like, it makes sense that she would feel the way she feels, right? Like, how could you not?
Yeah. And I thought that was pretty brilliant on the writer's part to give her some more depth.
Yeah.
The actress is giving this character so much on screen, but then to give us that backstory, that history, the reason for this hatred was, if they hadn't done that, I think that just would have relegated Vadic to just being the mustache twirling villain,
for sure,
of the season, which I kind of think they tread that, or they skirted that line just a little bit too much for my taste. But at least they give us this bit of history with the character. And so I
think they
really
did it.
that.
I think the reason they did it was because they knew that she was not going to make it past to the end of the season. Usually you kill the bad guy off at the end of the episode, right? They didn't do that with her. So I think they wanted I think that was the way to get you to understand her a little more before they take her off the board.
Well, we'll have to get into that, because that whole, I mean, that's the next episode. So
Right.
I have words about that too, but let's see here. Okay. So, if you don't mind, let's talk about Jack a little bit more, because, so Vadic finds the Titan. It's actually a trap set by Jean-Luc Picard to lure them in. And, so they go, Vadic and some of her shipmates go over to the Titan. Notice that she did not want to use the transporter.
I noticed that the second time I watched the episode. I was like, I didn't even realize it the first time.
I didn't either.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
She didn't want to use the transporter.
Yeah. So obviously we know now why, but
we know now. But back then, I didn't even catch it. Like, they were dropping clues all the way
exactly.
And just
yes.
didn't even catch it.
Yeah. So they're there. Like I said, Picard's trying to set a trap, which Jack initiates, because the Vadic is walking down a corridor, and then Jack just happens to walk by to initiate the chase, and which they do, and then they start using force fields to trap the changelings here and there. And at one point, Jack and Sydney are in the same area, and they've got some changelings trapped next to them. That comes into play here in a minute. But so since we're talking about Vadic, Picard actually traps Vadic in a force field as well. Actually, Picard arrives later, doesn't he? Because it's her and Beverly at first, I think. But we get this, regardless, we get this wonderful conversation between Beverly and Vadic. And Beverly she goes through this set of emotions with Vadic, the fear, the anger,
But Beverly has, it makes me think of Seinfeld. She has no hand in this because she doesn't know what the Vedek's been through. Like, you have
That's true. Yeah, right.
your rage is nowhere near the rage that the Vedek has.
But it's still, I mean, talking about what we were talking about earlier about a parent and the love of a child. Given that Vadic has been pursuing her son, and now she is, the pursuer is now trapped. Beverly wants answers.
I think Vedek, the reason why she had that self-righteous look on her face with Beverly also is that you're coming at me, you're talking about going against your ethics in terms of killing me, right? When she's coming from the mind of your kind, pretty much. This is Starfleet we're talking about. These are Starfleet officers who made an oath, pretty much tortured us to the point of oblivion and back, right? They've done these horrible things. And the excuse is always they didn't know. They didn't know. Because it's happened before when they were chasing. Remember, the changelings were chased throughout the galaxy at first. And a lot of them were killed. And that is why they made a Dominion to protect themselves. That's the first conversation they have about the Dominion when they talk to Cisco about it. They say, well, when they talk to Odo first, and then they talk to Cisco later on, where they say the reasons why they created an army is because people were, when they found out that they were what they were killing them just automatically. Mm-hmm. Like they were witches or whatever. Like at the witch trials, they were chasing them down and trying to kill them. And then after the war is over and you tell us, we don't treat prisoners like this and blah, blah, blah. And you shouldn't do this and all this kind of stuff. And even Odo tells them we don't do that. Even Odo said, I'll give you the cure because the solids are not bad people, blah, blah, blah. Look what they did. Mm. So now Beverly's talking about one child. You got to go by numbers now. She's seen her whole family get, these are her kids too. Like these are her kids, these are her sisters, these are her brothers. This is her family.
So that was the question I wanted to ask you was who has the more righteous ground in this situation?
The Vedek.
You think?
Yeah. She handled it she did it in the wrong way. She did it in a terrorist way, right? But in terms of Beverly she came after Beverly's kid, one kid. Imagine your family was taken, killed, and some of them tortured. And you had to watch it. Just imagine, you couldn't even put that in your head as to be able to deal with, because it's so horrific.
Yes, and so I think that's the brilliance of this scene between Beverly, Picard, and Vadic.
Yes, because it's like we can't let you even though we did all that stuff to you. Now we can't let you get away with it though. Like we can't just let you run around and just do this either. Like we still can't let you do this.
Yeah,
but we get why you feel the way you do. Picard gets it.
Well, especially. They get it, but they also both Beverly and Picard come to that decision that they're going to kill Vadic to stop her.
Oh, for sure.
And protect Jack and whatever is going on with Starfleet, right?
Right.
That, up till now, everything has been about Jack being pursued. People have been getting hurt, but this is a betrayal of ideals.
Yes.
That even Beverly, there was an earlier scene in one of the episodes where she was talking to Picard and made mention of basically she didn't want to, she doesn't like it, she doesn't like the idea, but maybe they should come up with a similar thing to the thing in Deep Space Nine that they did to the founders,
the
virus. Yeah. So she, Beverly was wondering about the moral implications of doing something similar. And Picard's like, well, maybe you should do it just in case, but then nothing is made of it. And now we get to this scene where Picard and Beverly are talking and they both decide that murdering another being in this situation is the right decision. And I thought that was a very interesting situation for these characters.
Well, the thing you have to remember, though, Beverly was the one who said we shouldn't put a virus in a program into the Borg.
Right.
That would kill them in a few years, and then think about what happened after that.
Yeah.
How many people were murdered because of it.
So you're saying it's Beverly's fault?
No, what I'm saying is think of yourself as Beverly, and when you had the chance to stop a threat and you didn't, because of morally you thought it was wrong, and then you turn around years later, see how much death.
Yeah.
And they get the truth. Like Beverly has seen the true devastation of what the Borg does because she had to, because she went out on the frontier still being a doctor. So she had to have seen all the stuff the Borg has done, like the aftermath of what has happened with the Borg. Like she's had to have seen it.
So let's go back to what you said earlier about the numbers, right? So between Vadic and Jack, right? But it's not just Jack, right? It's
not just Jack.
It's the terrorist attacks, at least the one attack. I don't know if there were others, right? So there's that. There's what is
the people replaced were murdered. Like you have to assume it. They don't know that, but they're assuming the people that were replaced.
Right. So it is. Yeah. So okay. So who has the moral high ground here?
That's the problem. There is no moral high ground there.
Right.
It's just
and so this whole conversation, this whole situation, this is Star Trek to me.
Yes.
These are the questions that Star Trek is often brought up, often struggled with. Yes. I love that about this. Even though
it's just great about
even though it's hard to see your heroes,
of course,
take that road less traveled for them and contemplate and actually attempt murder.
Yeah,
that was something else. That's probably I don't think we've ever seen something like this in Star Trek. Actually,
we've seen them get to the edge.
Yes,
we've seen.
Often, yes.
I mean, and we know about the stuff that happens with Cisco and what Garrick did. He didn't okay it, but it happened, and his duty should have been to put Garrick in jail. Like he should have put him in prison after what he did.
Yeah, and there's that whole part that
Romulan,
the one episode, where not Picard, Cisco does his captain's log, and we get all this stuff, the political stuff, and the assassination and murder and all that stuff, and he's like, at the end, he's like, I'm okay with it because of the greater good, right? That's the implication.
Yeah. And look at the Klingon War, and like there are times when it's been war, and this was war again. Like this is times when they've been put to the edge.
But this is a more personal thing, I think. So, whereas where the Dominion War was, lots of people being hurt or killed, this is a very personal situation with Picard and Beverly and Jack and all that stuff. So I just thought it was a wonderful examination of humanity with these characters. But I will say, just to button this up, they're horrible shots because.
Yes, I said the same thing in mine.
They have their phasers point blank shooting at a gelatinous Vadic at this point because Lore has. The agent of chaos, to borrow Geordi's phrase, has lowered the force fields to, enemy of my enemy is my friend sort of thing.
Right.
And so Vadic is able to escape, even though, like I said, both Picard and Beverly are right there shooting at it and at her.
You know what? I forgive that part because it seems to be when they're in a gelatinous state, they're harder to kill. But when they're in a solid state.
Okay. I wanted to ask you about that because.
Jack part bothered me because Jack had the Vedic had told the other changeling to stay where it was. Jack had a clear shot. He was right there. It's the same Jack who shot like 4 people in 2 seconds. He just came around, shot all 4 of them, and was done. He couldn't get that one shot to get that one guy. It was right there, and he was still. I was like, "Come on, we're doing Star Wars logic."
It is, yes. Oh my God, that's something I've noticed. That's why I want to bring it up, is because the phaser blasts when the changelings are shot seems horribly inconsistent.
Yes.
So, we had a scene earlier with Seven shooting the one changeling, vaporizing its arm, but it was still alive. We've seen them shoot changelings and they're either vaporized or they go down and they're dead.
Yeah.
And so, it's just, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. That's probably out of everything.
It's weird to me because I'm wondering, is it that they make organs in certain places and you have to shoot the organs to fool you? Like they have certain organs in certain parts of the body,
but it's never explained, and
it's never explained. No,
so it just looks like a horrible, convenient inconsistency.
Right. It's really just for this particular scene you can't shoot them, and then this other scene you can kill them, and then this other scene you can't kill them.
Exactly.
That's just what it becomes.
Yeah. But anyway, that's a minor quibble, really. With everything that we're getting.
That's science fiction.
Yeah,
that's pretty much a science fiction problem.
So at this point in the episode, like I said earlier, Jack and Sydney are together, but the force fields go down, and the changelings are going to kill them, or at least kill Sydney. And Jack,
but she can't fight like that.
Yes,
right.
But Jack, we find. Well, okay, I'm actually jumping ahead because earlier in the episode, Jack can read Sydney's mind, we find out.
Yeah, that's when he gets creepy.
Yes, exactly. Right. When you said that,
he didn't do it on purpose, but he was able to do it.
So that was a little creepy. But then, later in the episode, in this situation, he not only reads her mind, he takes over her body and has her do what he wants her to do in order to fight off the changeling and protect herself. So, that's a stellar upgrade from what we've seen of Jack. Originally it was just him having these weird visions and whatever is communicating with him, and that's it. But now he can read minds and control the body.
Yeah, I don't like that. Yeah, that makes you go, ooh. I don't think I like that at all.
So what do you mean by that? Just in terms of
it's just a fundamentally that weirds you out, right? Anybody that has the ability that not only take over your mind but read your thoughts at the same time, also, like, that's pretty.
Well, and that's what I liked about Sydney's reaction to this. It wasn't her being grateful for him helping save her.
I liked it and I didn't. There's some bull crap I call out I hate. There's this thing about TV and movies where I hate when characters don't tell others information that they need to know. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. It's like you gotta come up with a better reason why a person doesn't give the information that they need, and it's never a good reason.
Well, but in this scene, she has that reaction.
Oh yeah, she has the reaction of she's scared of him,
right? And runs away before he can. But of course, he doesn't even know what's going on. He just knows that it happened.
But then she just goes along and just doesn't say anything again about it. Like she just.
Well, yes, okay, you're right about that. That's where the writers fell down and didn't give us an additional
they fell down because if he had done something where he was able to instinctively, that thing within him instinctively made her forget that he was able to do it. I'd be like, I'm fine with it. If they had added that, because all this is instinct for him. He doesn't know he's really doing this stuff.
But it does play into the next episode. So at least they introduced it before they needed it.
Yeah, right. They do. I like the lead up of some of it, but it does give into that. I just won't. I know that this is something you really, really need to know. Like, I know there's a bomb on the ship, and I'm looking at it right now. I'm not going to tell you though until it gets down to 5 seconds. Then I'll tell you. Then it's like, what? Why did you wait till now to tell? And it's like, I don't know. Like, there's no good reason for it. Like, I don't know why I didn't tell you. He's just the Darrell. Captain of the ship. Like, you have a captain and you have an admiral and you don't tell any of them. And you're Starfleet.
Yeah.
Like, that is your duty to tell them this information. This is not like a personal thing where, I made out with Picard's son. Like, that's different. Like, I kissed Picard's son. I don't want to say anything about it because it's personal. No, this is something really important. They want this guy. He is able to control your minds and your body.
Oh, okay.
You see what I'm saying?
I don't want to say it now, but
Okay.
given something that we find out in a future episode, maybe that plays into what you're saying here. I'll have to try to remember to bring this back
Okay.
up. Well, okay, so I think we're about done with this episode.
Yes.
It does end. So Picard set the trap, but
Yes.
it's backfired, and we get the end with Vadic in charge, in control of the Titan, and ending with
Love her sitting in that seat too. Disrespectful. She's like, F your couch. F your couch.
But she opens up the comms and announces to Jack, "It's time you learned who you truly are." What a great ending to that episode.
Oh, it's great. Great villain stuff right there.
Yeah. We also do see, before that, I jumped ahead, but we do see Troy back because Vadic had earlier said, scour the universe for any associate of Picard's and bring them to me. And they go find Troy. And only Troy, because if you were, we talked about family and the daughter, the whole daughter stuff. If you are going to Nepenthe to retrieve Troy, why didn't they bring Kestra as well?
Because we ain't got the money to have nobody babysit no kids. That's why.
I know. It's just one of those little inconsistencies.
I get it. I thought the same thing. I'm like, but I know that when you, and thinking from a logistics point of view, when you're trying to get this thing done, it's like, that's just another thing. We just don't have the money, because they really ran this thing up to the budget. Like, you really don't have the time or the money to have to worry about. Then you have to write, what do you do with the kid afterward? Like, the kid is in jeopardy, then you have to really worry about. You couldn't have her in other, like, where are you going to put her later after this episode is over?
Well, and I have more to say about Kestra from the next episode. So,
Okay.
Was there anything that we didn't touch on for?
Well, I think we hit everything on this one.
Okay.
Let's get to the penultimate before the actual ultimate.
Yeah. This may have been one of my favorite episodes of the season so far that we've talked about. So much is going on here.
Yes.
For example, the episode opens with hearing and seeing the remains of the Titan crew being hunted down.
Yeah.
The screams that we hear over the comms and how Vadic is delighting in that. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
She's so evil.
Yes, she is. She is.
We see, let's see here. Well, we're just talking about, not characters not telling each other things.
Mm-hmm.
We do get Jack telling Mom and Dad what has been happening to him finally.
Right.
So at least, there's that, but Vadic seems to know what he can do as well. Let's see here. There's the point at which, since again, we're talking about Jack, because he tells Beverly and Picard what he can do. And instead of him rushing up to surrender himself to Vadic, he thinks that he can maybe connect with a crew member to have them. I forget now what it was exactly. Darrell, do you remember what he was trying to get them to do?
He was trying to, if you could put the captain pre-codes in. Remember, like, they can override, a captain can override a ship's.
So that Picard could take over.
Right. If you have the command codes, you can actually override a ship. It's like a personal password. It's like every captain or admiral has a password, and they can override any ship with that password if they have, even if they're not in command of it, but they have the override of that ship. That's what it is.
So yeah, Jack basically takes over Lieutenant Murrah.
Right.
And has him start doing that, but Vadic catches him.
Now, if Jack was more experienced, because he's young. If he was more experienced, what he should have done first, and if Picard was really thinking about it, what he should have done is take over Shaw's body, have Shaw whisper to Seven, I need you to distract Vadic long enough for me to put the codes in.
Mm.
That's what you should have done.
Yeah.
And then jump into the other body.
Except there's a whole reason why he was jumping into certain bodies.
Well, yes, that's right.
But we find that out later.
But he doesn't know that.
Right.
He doesn't know that. But he could have jumped into any of the ensigns, but like if he couldn't
Yeah.
do some, he wouldn't know why. But he'd be like, well, then jump into the next whatever. Just someone close enough to whisper to Seven to distract them.
But what I found interesting about that though was that when Vadic catches the situation, she seems to know.
Oh, she
what
instantly knew.
Jack can do.
Even because you get a sense that at first you thought she didn't know why that being wanted Jack. Only that being felt that Jack was important. That's it. That's what you thought. But after this scene, you're like, oh, she knows what the deal is.
Yeah.
With this guy.
And and later when Jack actually does show up on the bridge, she says something about the red door.
Yes.
To Jack. So at that point, I was thinking, wait, so does Vadic also have these visions?
Right.
How much does she know? Why does she know it? Just all these questions were swirling in my mind as I was watching this episode.
Yeah, it was the same thing. It's like, is it a link thing? Because I kept thinking, like, is it something with the Great Link somehow? They can mentally do it. I just knew it wasn't the power race. That's one thing I knew. I was like, no, that is not how the power race look. They look different when they take over your body. It's not the same thing.
Oh, that's true. Right.
So I knew that part of it, but other than that,
we had talked about the power race in the first episode, and I always thought that would have been a very interesting approach to this, rather than what we in comparison to what we got. So.
Right.
All right. We could talk about that in the next episode. Let's see here. Again, on the bridge, Murrah tells Vadic that he can't command Jack to come up to the bridge because he's Starfleet.
Right.
And so is he on his knees at that point? Maybe not.
I think he was standing when he said that.
Yeah, I think you're right. So yeah, we have the bridge crew all standing there. Shaw's not doing anything. He's not saying anything.
Well, he had that argument with Seven to stand down.
Right.
Seven wanted to
fight.
Yeah, to fight. On top of, we did forget to mention, Shaw wanted her to kill them. Like to blow the
turbolift with him in it, and she didn't because
Yeah, you don't do that to your crew. Like that's
right. But he was right again. Shaw was right. She should have done it. Shaw's always right with her.
He's right on that front, but it's a Kirk and Picard and Janeway and Cisco way of doing things and Archer's way of doing things is there's always hope you're going to get out of it, and they always do. But they're the elite, right?
Well, so again, though, Shaw is like sacrifice me for the greater good. He's had this conversation with Seven before about you are Starfleet, you protect your crew over anything else. And yet when they're in that line where Vadic is interrogating Murrah,
you could call it that.
Yeah. And just basically being menacing, Shaw's just standing there silently. What I expected was for him to do the captain thing, take me, do what you want with me, leave my crew alone, that kind of thing. We've seen that a bajillion times in Star Trek. But I was curious, why do you think he's just quiet and just stands there during this whole situation?
Didn't he say something where he survived and then he felt like and then his crew died? Like he was one of the ones who survived the Worf 359 and then his other, I don't know. Like I don't.
You think it ties into that?
Probably. It's probably. I don't. That it could be a part because I don't know if he read Vedic enough because Vedic didn't want the captain. Like, yeah, of course, the captains always sacrifice themselves in Starfleet. That's not what she wants. She wants terror. She wants.
Oh, and she can't terrorize him.
Right. You can't. If he's gonna be. You remember she loved when that ensign had a tear come down her eye.
Oh, yes.
Remember that part? She almost it almost looked like it was just a turn on to her. The people that those people that they call the torture people, like that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was Ensign Asmar. When that tear fell down her eye, that's why she kept doing what she was doing, because she wanted the others to watch her suffer.
Yes. Yeah, that whole scene was just really intense.
Right. Because she didn't kill that. Because the only reason why she left that other guy alone when she first had the gun to him, and he said, "Because I'm Starfleet," was because, okay, he's no fun. He's not gonna give me what I want. I want I want crying. I want
fear.
to break them emotionally. I want the fear, because then she wants Jack. She doesn't care about Picard and them. They're all heroes. They love to be martyrs, right? That's what they are. I don't want the martyrs. The martyrs. I want the ones who don't want to die. The ones who will, beg for their lives almost. I want them, the ones that are going to give me the emotion, and then I'm not going to kill them. I'm just going to keep terrorizing them and kill others in front of them until they break down, and that breaking down would get Jack to do what he wants him to do.
It's a good plan.
It's a good plan because where did she learn torture from?
Uh-huh. I know the irony is so rich there. I love that.
We taught her this, right? Starfleet taught her how to torture. That's what she learned.
So, okay. So that the torture, the murder scene, let's talk about that. You talked about Ensign Esmar. So Vadic has got the phaser on Esmar's head. You think that she's going to kill Esmar, but she then at the last second turns her phaser and vaporizes Tavine.
Well, she waits for Esmar to scream a little.
Yeah.
That's what she wanted. And then she turned it and killed Lieutenant Tavine.
The randomness, the capriciousness of the act is just, it's perfect in terms of what Vadic is after.
That's what she wanted.
I will say, I did not know who this actor was playing on the show, but I had seen on social media, someone had retweeted or posted something from the actress who plays Tavine. I found out later, but that she would no longer be on the show because of something that happened in it. And so when I got to this scene, I'm like, oh, that's what that was about. So I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite spoiled, but I knew somebody wasn't going to make it out of this. I just didn't know who it was.
Right.
And obviously I knew it wasn't one of the main people, the people that I'm familiar with. So, but yeah, that was unfortunate. Poor Tavine. Well, and again, you were talking about the phasers before. It completely vaporizes her.
Yeah.
As opposed to, but again, she's not a changeling, I guess. Maybe that's the difference. So, but yeah, just real back. Here's a thought that I have in my notes about Shaw. I was trying to get to was that, and you mentioned Wolf 359, and so I thought of that too. I was like, so is this a mirror to that story that he told earlier? Is that why he's so impotent in this scene? He's just like, there's nothing he can do. In fact, I think he even tells Seven earlier, there's nothing she can do.
Yeah, that's what he told him. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do.
But again, it's so, it's so Shaw, but it's so un-Starfleet captain-like to just let things happen.
Oh, for sure. Because the deal. That's a scene where you'd be like, we have to act. And the person's like, no, this is not what we do. We do what they want us to do, for as long as possible. Like, this is, we don't anger them by trying to be a hero. This is not that's what she was, that's what he was trying to say to her, which appalls Seven, of course, because that's not what she learned.
Yeah.
Right? You always act. That's what she learned from Janeway. You always act. And in her years of being one of the Rangers, you act. Even when Starfleet tells you not to, you act.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was such it goes again. That's why she said, I am 7 of 9. Stop effing calling me my slave name. She basically that is my slave name, my slave human name. That's not what name I want. I want you to call me the name I chose, the name that I have that I decided to accept. This is my new life. You call me that name. And so it was a mess. It was pretty bad. I don't know who do you agree with on that. Like, it's hard to say, right? It's like, part of me is like, well, he's probably, it really wasn't much they could do because you're not going to take out 7 changelings.
Sure.
and they have guns.
What I was hoping, or what I wanted more, was just more Shaw moments, because
Yeah,
we
yeah,
haven't had too many of those in the last few episodes,
I know.
and I just want more Shaw.
I'm with you on that, but I guess they were trying to be like, well, Shaw's not the cut. Like he wouldn't automatically turn into Die Hard, right?
Sure.
Bruce Willis in the whole place all of a sudden. Like he wasn't that
Well, yeah,
guy.
I'm not saying that they shouldn't violate the character that they've set up, because I think this is in character.
I think they just did that just to give that last argument
Yeah.
about it. But I think if it was, I think it was I think they wanted us to have the moment where she, even though she can't stand him, she was not willing to sacrifice him.
Mm-hmm.
Even with that, she was not willing to sacrifice him.
Yeah.
And then, and that kind of inspired him to not be the guy who just doesn't do anything but sit on regulations, but be the guy who steps up even in the face of regulation.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what they were trying to show. And if the show had more episodes, I think we would have gotten more. We definitely would have got more with Shaw. If they had imagine if they had 22 episodes, at least 15. Imagine if they had 15. We would have got more with that.
And this episode is just so jam packed with stuff that I can forgive them for not giving us a bit more.
Right,
Shaw,
you only got but so much time.
Yeah.
10 is such a small number of episodes in terms of how many people you have on this cast.
Well, what we do get more of, and let's jump to this scene here with Riker and Deanna Troi. So we get more Troi.
Right.
They're in a cell on the Shrike, being held prisoner, which I love those two together. Those two as husband and wife, though strained. Obviously, we find out things are not all that great, which was hinted at by Riker in an earlier episode. But just the playfulness of the actors in these as these characters, I thought they just did a wonderful job here, even though maybe it was a bit too jovial.
No bet.
Considering the circumstances they're in. Also,
Right.
The fact that, again, like I said earlier, what of their daughter? They do not talk about Kestra in this scene at all.
No.
Which, as if I were Riker, that'd be and I see my wife here captured, I'd be like, what happened to Kestra? Where's Kestra?
Listen, Eric, they have no time for that.
I know.
They have to talk about how bad that house and scenes were in Picard 1.
Yeah.
Okay? Season 1. That's what they were concentrating on.
Well,
Okay.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because in my notes, I say their conversation about Nepenthe, is that a rejection of season 1?
Yes. To say otherwise is insane. You listen to what they said. Yes. She said latte, Raccigino latte. Okay? Like, why the hell would we want to sit in some cottage way out somewhere with no one around?
Because, and so we had that first scene with them where they're talking about this stuff, right? And
Right.
We get introduced to a new Beta Z word, Yintaru, which means baby of immense size. That's so. This is where, based on what I know of the actress, this seems more like her than it does Deanna.
Oh, this is Marina Sirtis has become the true. Like, this is just Deanna Troi is gone. It's been Marina Sirtis from since ever since she's played her in Picard season 1.
Yes,
that is her. Like, there's she's like, I'm not that person anymore. I'm gonna play it like her mom, like the character who was her mom.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
I am playing it that way. I'm not being the pretty, subdued Deanna Troi.
Right.
I'm being me, and stop using that goddamn
Imzadi, yeah.
Imzadi. That's the only thing you know. Every time you want to do some, you want to have some quality time, hint, you do that. You use that word on me.
Well, to be fair, there is some redemption for the use of the word.
Sure.
Imzadi later, which we'll get to.
It's so stuck in her. Yeah, it's so stuck in her brain that it's like once he does it. because that's his thing. When he gets the most emotional, that is when he emotes that word.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's like, listen, don't Mazzati me right now. All right. We have some things to talk about first. Don't throw that at me right now.
Well, and that's where we get so it's a later scene, but it's still them there in the cell, and we find out okay, this is where to be fair, Riker actually does mention Kestra. So, finally.
Yeah, he does.
But he and Deanna have this discussion about the grief that they felt, his grief in particular, but about their son's death, and
right.
I thought this is the most interesting thing about this was what Riker thought Deanna was doing to him. And you mentioned this, I think, in the previous episode about this as well. So I was curious, what was your reaction to this conversation?
It made total sense. And the first thing, this is why they tell therapists not to do self-therapy. You're supposed to have a therapist. All therapists are supposed to get a therapist because anybody else, you would have told them to let yourself grieve in the pace that you want to grieve. But with her own family, she pretty much wanted him she was trying to take it away, trying to take the burden of the pain from him, and he didn't want her to do that. He wanted to feel it. He needed to feel that pain. And so he felt that she was trying to tell him it wasn't valid. That's what he thought.
Yes.
But he didn't say it to her. And it's funny, the two people that can mentally use telepathy between them can still misread each other, even after all these years, when it comes to these kind of emotions. Like, it's just, that's the whole thing with grief, right? It's just, no one handles it. There is no right way to handle grief.
Exactly.
Right? There's no such thing. And that's what they didn't, neither one of them let the other know that. They both thought it, but they just didn't tell each other straight out, like, it's okay to grieve the way you grieve.
Well, and again, this is a wonderful little bit of, humanity coming through with Deanna.
Right.
When she said, when he's saying all this stuff, basically accusing her of suppressing his grief, his emotions, she's like, she kind of reacts a bit, I thought, maybe angrily, defensively, of course.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And saying, I was feeling everybody's grief.
Right. She got everything.
And I just, while, on one hand, your heroes shouldn't be selfish and all that kind of stuff, but it was so true that she was feeling overwhelmed with everything, that she had to do something about it. And, she chose perhaps wrongly in the way that she did it. And she admits that later. But I just love that bit of character that Deanna has in her Beta Z powers, and being like she was drowning in everybody's emotion, and not and having to deal with her own too.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine going through grief and not only and feeling someone else's grief along with your own. I couldn't do that. I couldn't handle that.
Yeah, how strong of a person do you have to be to handle that, even if she did it maybe not in the best way?
No.
Yeah, just dealing with the death of family members, through the eyes of my wife, for example, when her father passed, and how her family died. Just seeing it, is hard enough. But then also, if you had to actually feel it as they feel it, oh my God,
I wouldn't know what to do with that. Yeah,
it would kill me.
I wouldn't. Yeah, it would. It would definitely kill me. I mean, if I lost my mother, if I had to deal with someone else's grief on top of my own, I barely was able to take care of my own.
Oh, yeah.
And you know what I mean? So I could not imagine that pain of trying to, and we know especially women are put in the role, whether they want it or not, of being the caretakers. Mm-hmm. So when there's pain to be had, right, they don't get to sit and look off into the distance and feel it like we do, right? It's more acceptable of us men to sit in our grief a little bit longer than women. Women are still, thought of as they have to, you have to take care of the kids. You got to do this. You got to, You don't, and then when you don't, you get judged for it, not taking care of everybody else. So it's different. It's harder. She was a mother and a wife. And, and she probably felt like she had to take care of him. And there had to be some resentment in that.
Yeah. You mean on her part?
On her part, it had to be. You don't want it to be, but it has to be there because she probably felt like I had to take care of him and not be able to grieve my own self. I had to just put my grief aside for a minute because his was so great.
Mm. Oh, and maybe that's what's informing that defensive-ness that
exactly.
I picked up on.
Yeah. And he's saying, I didn't even think that I was emoting it on you. I'm just feeling it. Right?
I wasn't doing it to you. I
wasn't doing it to you. I was just feeling
experiencing.
It.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just experiencing it. I just, so it's like neither one of them meant malice to the other. It's just two people that just didn't know how to deal with that great a loss. It's just so great. They just didn't know how to deal with it.
This whole scene, this whole conversation
was great
with Riker and Troy.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful way to.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Cap what we saw from season 1,
right?
And then also Riker as we see him at the beginning of this season, and running away from the problems. So wonderful through line of characterization with these two in this situation, and again talk about what Star Trek does best is in this examination of grief. I mean, that's not something that there's a few episodes. I remember one where a young boy's parents are killed and he takes on the persona of Data because Data doesn't feel and he doesn't want to feel.
I remember that.
That was such a great episode. And
it was.
But they don't really get into the whole idea of what grief is and how we deal with it in science fiction generally.
Right. Remember the episode where Deanna lost her abilities, but before that, she was counseling the woman who had just lost her husband.
Yes.
Remember that? And the woman was like, "Oh, I don't need his stuff. I'm going to, take his stuff and I'm going to get rid of it. And it's all good. I know, I'm sad he died, but I have to get over it. I'm good. I got this." And she knew she didn't. And she just had to let her break. She had to let her break on her own. She couldn't rush her. She couldn't, force it. She had to let her just get to the point where she just let all that emotion out. And she kept that little trinket of her husband's, and she knew she was trying to rush her grief. And that was an amazing moment like that. And she did that without the, having the empathic powers. She thought she was a failure. I can't do this without my empathic power. And then she realized the woman was like, "You're so right." I was so much in grief. I couldn't even see it. And you were able to bring it out of me without forcing me to come out of it. And it was, that was an important moment to show that she's not just using a crutch to be a therapist.
Well, so the scene does end eventually, though, because Mr. Worf to the rescue again.
Of course, yes. With his nonviolent way.
Yeah. But my God, the dude is stealthy, right? Because they're
Riker
and Troy are having this conversation.
Yeah.
Riker hears someone entering. We get the bad guy, whatever, open the cell, and then Worf is just suddenly behind him and stabs the guy.
Well, I love how for once you wait till they open the prison,
right? Exactly,
to kill them. Don't kill them beforehand and then have to look for keys.
Yes, yeah,
so
I'd like that too. Yeah,
so smart.
And of course, it's another reunion because Troy and Worf.
And this is when the passive aggressive Worf is like, "All right, now I'm going to make a pass at your wife in front of you, and you're going to feel how you made me feel uncomfortable earlier. Now you're going to feel it."
Yeah, that whole speech of him, Deanna, and he starts off and he's often thought and blah blah blah. What does Riker say? Inappropriate or something?
No, he says, "Am I still being tortured?"
Oh, right.
It's like, "Am I still being tortured?" But that's Worf. That's the new Worf, right? He's like, "Oh, okay, I got something for him. I got something for his ass."
I never liked that whole idea of Deanna and Worf together that they played with towards the end of the run
I
of the
kind of
series.
liked it because it made sense. There are relationships that get that people have where they fall in love with the idea of being with that person because they love the kid. And that's what happened with her. She fell in love with being a parent. She just wanted to be a mother. And she got to a point where she pretty much loved Alexander as if he was her kid. And she loved Worf because he loved his kid, and it kind of got caught up in that.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's what it was. And you knew it wasn't going to last. Like, when they threw it in there, you knew it wasn't going to work because that's what it was based on. It wasn't like they hit it. Like, you knew that it was all because she loved Alexander so much. That's why that's why her and Worf got together, because it wasn't because they were in love with each other. It was because they loved the kid.
Well, I just love that the fact that they, Terry Matalas and the writers and stuff, they just threw this little thing in, which is this really minor character plot point from 30 years ago. So I just thought that was cute.
Oh, it was great.
And it was a great moment between Riker and Troy and Worf, right?
It was a great I'm gonna F with you, Riker, by coming at your wife with all that poetry shit that you like to do with, like you're the romantic. I'm going to come at her like that. And she knows he didn't, she knows he didn't mean it, but they both like giving Riker shit. Right?
Well, it's also Worf's way of getting back at Riker's jabs at him when they were on Daystrom Station, right? So it's like,
that's exactly what it was. He's like, I'm going to get him. This is what I'm going to get him. If I wait long enough, I'll figure out a way. Yeah, I'll figure out a way to get him.
But okay, so then the memories and whatnot continue to flow because we get a scene between Data and Lore because, desperate times, they've lowered that partition for Data and Lore to fight it out, hoping, hope is not a plan, Picard, but whatever.
Exactly.
Hoping that Data will prevail over Lore, and we get this wonderful scene between Brent Spiner, between Data and Lore, where Lore is basically taking over, and but what's happening is that Data keeps getting these memories, and what we see are these mementos, things that represent these memories.
He played dumb. He's like, when I watched it the second time, I'm like, oh, I totally get it. He's like, if I give all of my memories and stuff to him, it's basically I am putting myself in his program so that I can take over his program. Yeah. Like, it's instead of fighting him for it, just give it to him.
It was a lovely, yes, it was very lovely the way that Data turned it but it wasn't an aggressive reaction to anything. It was. What was the line? He says that by you taking my memories, you have become me.
Right.
And that's how Data actually prevails in that whole
Lore
situation.
Is such a bully. Like he knows his brother, but he gets his brother. Lore is a bully. That's all he is. He's always been that way. He's always going to be that way. You can't work with Lore. So if you pretend to be dumb, because he always thought he was smarter than Data, right? Because he had emotions. So if I play dumb, he'll think, this is him winning because I'm giving up. And the dummy didn't realize that it's just me taking over his entire program, just putting all my memories in it, just moving my stuff to another side of the room. That's all. I still win. So no more Lore.
And I like the last. This is almost the last thing that happens between Data and Lore before Lore becomes Data.
Yeah.
The last memory that Data presents is Spot, the cat.
Yeah. That's the last piece. That's that piece. Yeah.
He says, "This is Spot. This simple creature managed something quite miraculous, something of which I did not know I was capable. In a way, he taught me to love. He is the best of me, the last of me. He taught me to love." So this, there's a debate
about the daughter.
Well, not that, but does Data actually learn? Does he learn emotions? Does he gain emotions over the course of the 7
Oh, for
years?
sure. I never gave into that he didn't learn emotion because
Exactly.
when that guy, when he was going to kill that guy. When that guy looked at him and said, I will continue to hurt, torture, and murder whoever I want to.
Oh, and the phaser
And
goes
he
off?
murdered, yep, and he murdered that woman in front of his face.
Oh, right.
Data was pissed. And they can't tell me that. Data was pissed. Something fired in his positronic network.
Maybe that was even the beginning.
Yeah, it could have been
of emotions for him. Even despite the memory chip that we get later, right?
Yeah. I think that totally was that. Yeah.
I just love the acknowledgement of the writers here, that Spot, the animal, taught Data to love. Not his friendship, which he does talk about with Geordi, that he values very much. But, the love of a pet is the thing that he acknowledges that he loves.
I agree with this, with the thing of until you are a caregiver to, and it doesn't have to be just your children, but a caregiver to anyone, like you're basically taking care of somebody or something. You don't know what love is until you do that. Yeah. I think, right? That is just something that you can't teach it. You have to experience loving something so much or loving somebody so much that you will sacrifice things to take care of that person, period. It's just something you do. Not because you have to do it. It was because it's something you want to do because you want to help that person or you love that person. There's nothing that teaches you love more than that. It's just not. That's why I think kids with pets, it's always good to have a kid to have some kind of pet to take care of because it teaches them early on that they're, this is what it is to care about somebody or something, right? I think that helps. And for Data, he was a child, right? He kind of was emotionally, he was kind of a child. And these things helped him to get the emotional adulthood that he needed.
So that's another question I had for you. So what did you think of this reborn Data? He is basically human now. He's achieved his longtime goal, his lifelong goal to become human.
I think it's the best way to have Data continue to be Data. Mm-hmm. And it makes sense because you just can't have him just be aging and you just pretend you put some makeup on him and you pretend it didn't happen. But you got to come up with something, and it's science fiction. And all right, a Gollum where it ages and it that's the Gollum I could have dealt with instead of the nonsense they did with Picard in season 1. They could have figured out another way.
I did like the scene, the quick conversation, I guess, with Picard. So once Data is back, right? Picard, everybody's happy that Data is back, but he does express some concern about Data's dying wish from season 1. Basically asking Data, "Are you okay that we brought you back?" And I appreciated the acknowledgement of that aspect.
Yeah, I did too. I did appreciate it too because that was his wishes at the time. Yeah. But he was stuck in a freaking iPhone somewhere. And he's like, who wants to do that? I don't want to be stuck in something.
And like I said earlier, Data does talk to Geordi about their friendship, and says the one thing that will remain forever constant is my gratitude for your friendship. And so
that's right.
Another nice cap on this whole Data Geordi thing that we've been harping on.
Should have gotten. Yes,
exactly.
Should have gotten.
Okay, we should talk about the stuff on the bridge with Jack and Vadic. So I said earlier, Jack shows up on the bridge. He has what looks like a grenade or something. At least that's what he intimates.
That's what we're supposed to think, right?
And there's a standoff there. He basically threatens Vadic to blow himself up and everybody unless she takes just him and allows the crew to go. And so Vadic agrees, of course. And so everybody's going into Shaw's ready room behind the bridge, except for Seven. Seven stays. And as the doors are closing, because Shaw's like, "What are you doing?" And she says, "I'm accepting the consequences," which is what Shaw was telling her previously.
Right.
what I found interesting about that, Darrell, was Vadic looks at her, smiles, and says, "How fitting it is for you to stay and witness this."
Another clue.
What the hell does that mean? There's also a point at which, when she's talking to Jack, and I think I mentioned this earlier, she says something about the red door. And so it's like,
right.
What is going on? What does Vadic know? What does it all mean? Unfortunately, we don't get more of that because this has all been a ruse and it's a trap. And because Data is back, Data takes over the ship, and I forget exactly what he said when he announced that what he was doing, but it was funny. But he basically allows Picard to take over the ship, and Picard issues the command to basically to open up
to blow the airlock on the bridge.
On the bridge, exactly, right. But of course, the Jack and Seven are safe because the device that he's holding is a portable force field generator, right. I guess, right? And so the airlock is blown. The changelings and Vadic all get blown out. And right before that happens, she says something. Oh, I forgot to write this down, Darrell. Do you remember what she says? The effing solids or something like that?
I love it. I love what she said. I was just texting. When I rewatched it this morning, I was just texting my friend Hasid. I said, I love it when she says, "You effing solids."
And okay, so this is the part that I was touching on earlier that I wanted to get to. So Vadic goes off into space, and we see her body freezing in the vacuum of space, and freezes solid, and then hits the Shrike and breaks up in all these little pieces.
Yeah, that's it. By Vadic.
What an ignoble end to a great villain. It seemed a little slapstick to me with what she says and then what happens to her. Was it satisfying to you to see Vadic end in that way?
I didn't expect her to die before the end of the season.
There's that too. That was my first reaction. What? Vadic is dead? What?
But I did like how I did. It gave me, it was even in Star Trek, there is this enemy that we fight, and then we finally get the enemy, and either Data says something ridiculous, or somebody on the ship just like, we got that, something like they say that something. It was in that vibe. It felt that vibe to me, where it was that, we got the bad guy scene. Even in Wrath of Khan, there's a moment where they get the drop on the bad guy. They one up the bad guy, and there's just that moment of just yes, like even when old man Kirk put his leg up on that chair, and he's like, fire, and he does the thing, and it's like, it looks ridiculous. He looks crazy when he does that scene, but it's like, but you hate this villain so much that you're like, I am with you. I am so sick of all the bad stuff this person has done, and she tortured people, and she, all this kind of stuff. It was just great. Like, it was that kind of moment. I didn't mind it as much because you just hated her by this moment. Like, even with the torture thing she went through, when she terrorized these kids the way she did.
You're right about that. Yeah.
You're like, I don't care anymore. I want you gone. Like, I loved seeing you do all the crazy stuff, F your couch, all this kind of stuff you were doing. Great energy, but you got to go. You did too much. I
was really surprised, though, that, obviously we still have the face to deal with.
Right.
But the fact that Vadic that part of the story is done, and we still have 2 more episodes.
Yeah.
I was surprised. I figured that we would see Vadic, in the final episode in some way.
For sure.
All right, and then we get another. Remember, I mentioned in a previous episode where I think Riker says fire everything or whatever. I forget now who says that, but and they only fired 4 torpedoes or whatever. So we get the same thing too here. They regain, so they close the the airlock. Seven is taken over the bridge again, and they decided to destroy the Shrike, and she gives the order to give them everything we got, and it's only 5 torpedoes. Like,
listen, that 5 was in the budget, okay?
What is this everything we got thing, and we only get 5 torpedoes? Anyway, okay.
Wow. I mean, they do a lot of damage. I mean, those things
I know.
Are pretty destructive.
And then we got 2 more bits here before the end of the episode. How great, Darrell, was it to see all the Next Gen cast together in the conference room again?
Favorite scene.
Really?
Yeah. Loved it. Because we have not seen this. When the last time we saw this, where they were in a, they're in a conference table. Like, like there's a thing in podcasts. A friend of mine, has a saying. He says staff meeting, because that's TNG always has a staff meeting.
Uh-huh.
Like, because the original series, Kirk's staff meeting was, this is what we gonna do. And then McCoy and Picard and Spock would argue with each other, and then it'd be done, right? No one else gets to say anything. TNG was when you actually had a discussion about what you're going to do, and they would have a staff meeting.
Right.
That's the thing. That is the for us old time fans especially. We're going to give you a little service. We're going to give you a little bit of that before we get into some more stuff.
Exactly. So at one point, Data even says, this me would rather be no place else in the universe.
Exactly.
And I thought, oh my God, that's the writers. That's Terry Matalas telling us, we know, we get it. This is what you want.
That's right. That's right. It's okay sometimes to do that. Sometimes people will enjoy it. You can do that. It's okay. It's fine.
It's during this conference room. By the way, here is where, I don't know if you've seen it before with Worf, but there's a point where he starts to sit down at the conference table, or there's a shot of him at the table, and you could see the pips on his uniform. He is a captain.
Oh, yeah. Well, he did. Well, I knew from the book. Remember we talked about it earlier? I knew from the books, but if you didn't read the books, you wouldn't know because they didn't mention it. But
yeah. So I thought, oh, well, that's interesting. So he's a captain. Riker's a captain. Their former, Geordi actually outranked Worf at one point, but now he outranks both of them. So I just...
Yeah, Geordi outranks all of them, and Picard he outranks Geordi, right? Like,
I mean, technically...
I don't know with a Commodore. I get confused with the Commodore.
Well, Commodore is below an admiral. But even still, Picard technically is retired, so he doesn't hold actual rank.
But when you're superhero captain, it never sticks, right? You're never fully retired until the end of the universe comes, and then you got to fight it again. Yeah, so it's like it's a wink, retired.
Of course, yes. But like I said, during the conference room scene, Deanna talks about, and there was actually an earlier scene where she has a physical reaction to what she senses, which is this darkness on the ship. And it's in the conference room scene where she reveals to her that she knows it's Jack. It's not a darkness in Jack.
Yeah, she made a point of saying it's not, Jack is not evil, but there's an evil surrounding him.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so she says, I think it's time I finally met your son. And we get the final scene of the episode where she's talking to Jack and using her Beta Z abilities to see the vision that he sees, the red door and those tendrils and the fear. I thought Spilliers did a good job doing that. The emoting that he does in that scene too is like the tears are coming down his face. He is terrified of opening that door, and it's only because of Troy saying, "Let's do it together." And that's where the episode ends. Is where Troy grabs the doorknob and turns it and starts to open it, and then it ends. And Darrell, when I watched that the first time, I was beside myself. I think I was literally on the edge of my seat.
Yeah. God dang it.
I want the next scene.
Yeah. Tell me what
it was a great ending.
Yeah. It worked.
In fact, I think all of these episodes had wonderful sort of cliffhangery
Oh, for
type
sure.
endings that made you
Oh,
made
for
you
sure.
so want to come back and watch the next episode.
Yes, it did. That is an absolute, for sure, statement that I agree with on all points, all counts. Definitely.
And Darrell, that is all I have for these 3 episodes of Star Trek Picard season 3. Do you have anything else you want to add
No,
in before
I
we...
put it out all on the stage. I've everything I have left. And now we're ready for the actual,
the 2-part finale?
ultimate 2-part finale.
Yeah. So I can't wait to. So I want to say, when I the first time I watched these episodes, there were elements about it where I was like, oh, it's like, oh, okay, they're doing this, they're calling back to that, it's like, okay, whatever, let's move on with the story type thing. But I have to say, rewatching these episodes so that I can talk to you about them has given me a better appreciation of the tapestry that they are creating
For sure.
throughout these now 8 episodes of season 3.
Yeah.
So I very much appreciate you wanting to do this journey with me, and I can't wait to come back and talk about the end of Star Trek Picard.
I know, most definitely. I'm ready. I'm looking forward to actually the excuse to rewatch it again, to rewatch those 2 episodes again,
Yeah,
and then to talk about what's coming and what happened and what we want to happen later too, because it's going to be a lot of that conversation.
What does this mean for Star Trek going forward in this
Exactly.
timeline anyway? Right. Yeah. So, okay. All right. So we'll save that for the next episode.
Right.
So thank you, everyone. This is going to be a long one, I already know. So I appreciate everybody sticking with us, and please let us know what you think of our discussion about these 3 episodes of Star Trek Picard season 3. Darrell, if people wanted to get a hold of you, how could they do that?
You can find me on the taylor.podcast.com, or you can look me up on, if Twitter still exists, The Voice 123, or Facebook under my name, Darrell Taylor. So find me there.
All right. And you can also get a hold of me by emailing me at longboxreview@gmail.com. Also, various other ways. All that stuff is at the website, longboxreview.com. So thank you for listening. Thank you, Darrell. And we will talk again very soon.